Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I'm Andrew Scaff. He's Mike Werman. Today we'll be talking about a little bit about the Kansas City Royals, but not too much. We're obviously going to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and Taylor Swift's visit to Kansas City.
That's the biggest story.
Everyone's talking about it, so we have to as well. And we'll get to our week 4 predictions and picks. But we'll start today with NFL's week 3, most interesting stories from this week. Mike, were you more intrigued by the blowouts by Kansas City and Miami against Chicago, Denver? The upsets by Arizona and Indy over Dallas and Baltimore? Or the upset blowout by Houston over Jacksonville? What of those categories did you find most interesting from this last week?
Well, I was watching the Chiefs game, so I guess I find that the most interesting, that they played well and they escaped relatively unscathed. It turns out it looked like Mahomes was going maybe to be hurt, and really that only happened because the referees were picking on Jawan Taylor, calling him this time they called him for a couple of penalties. The second one where they called him, I think they did. The Bears declined the first one, but the second one that was accepted was the long pass to a wide open Marcus Valdes-Scantling for a big touchdown right before the half, and he wasn't lined up improperly there. It was just because, well, he's Jawan Taylor, he must be lined up improperly, so we're going to throw a flag.
Yeah.
And we only throw the flags now because he plays on the Chiefs. We didn't care when he played for Jacksonville and did the exact same thing, and everybody else does the same thing. But now they sort of are flagging Taylor. They're going to flag Taylor a lot, but really not paying attention to the other tackle. I noticed last year, the tackles were moving early and they were backed up more.
Yeah.
It probably has been kind of gradual over the years, but if you watch the Philadelphia game against the Buccaneers, Lane Johnson was doing the exact same thing, perhaps even more egregiously than
and
Taylor
not flagged.
And not flagged. So it's just because the Sunday Night Football announcers said that Taylor was cheating, basically, that everybody is focusing on him. That's kind of what Andy Reid and Mahomes said. What else are they going to say? I guess, but it was. Anyway, back to the interesting game. I guess it was the Chiefs. I don't know because I was watching the Chiefs game, but I was surprised at I was very much surprised that Baltimore. I would say I was more surprised that Baltimore and Houston won than I was that Arizona won.
Indy and Houston?
Yeah, Indianapolis and Houston won than I was, because at least Arizona was at home, and I thought the Cowboys were a bit overrated because they were really scoring a lot from the defense, and you're not going to get turnovers every week. And I didn't expect the Colts to go into Baltimore and win, and the Texans to go into Jacksonville and win so easily. So that was probably the most surprising to me.
I don't think we thought Arizona was going to do anything all season, though. But winning particularly that game seems surprising, because it is the team that everybody was like, oh, the Cowboys are amazing. They were maybe number one in some of the power rankings, because they had won so dominantly in the first 2 weeks, and then just to get beaten by a team that everyone assumed was purposefully tanking. And then I thought that was maybe the most surprising of the upsets, to me at least, anyway. Okay. I mean, Dallas maybe had some injury issue too, one of their top defensive players.
Yeah,
his Achilles in the practice, I guess, of 2 days
he's not going to be in
the game. So that didn't help their cause, at least to me. But I don't think that wasn't the problem with the defense. Wasn't that particular position anyway. So
I thought the Cardinals played surprisingly well the first 2 weeks. They were at Washington, and they gave Washington a very good game. And then they were home against the Giants, and it looked like they were going to win most of that game. So they could have easily probably been 2-0 coming in, and so they lost 2 very close games. And I think Dallas probably was overconfident. I think, and just didn't play well because I just don't know how good Dallas really is, because you're in the NFC and they play 2 bad teams, it looks like, from New York, or at least caught the Giants probably on their worst day, and
Mhm.
blew them out. But they had like 2 defensive touchdowns, so like that's going to swing whatever, and the Giants didn't score. It was rainy and stuff, and like that was just like a. It seems like when the Giants go downhill, maybe they really go downhill. Fortunately, I guess for them against the Cardinals last week, 2 weeks ago now, they were able to right the ship at the end. But the Jets look terrible. The Chiefs are playing, two terrible teams back to back right now,
Mhm.
which is it's one of those things where the Sunday night, the Sunday night football and the primetime football, a lot of the games are going to feature like, it's the Jets, the Broncos, the Bears, and
Yeah.
Giants. These teams that people thought would be good, but also maybe came from big markets, and
Mhm.
they've been really bad. So, but yeah, I thought, yeah, but I think to me maybe the most surprising win was the Baltimore loss to old Baltimore, the Colts. So it was a
Yes.
classic Baltimore matchup between
Right.
the Colts and the Ravens, and
There were some really odd plays in that game too, like the Orlovsky-esque stepping out of the back of the end zone uh
Gardner Minshew, yeah,
by Gardner Minshew, right? And then but that actually like flipped the actual like position on the field because of that
yeah,
allowed them to get the ball back to kick a field goal that ended up tying the game to send it to overtime. I think if he didn't step out of the back of the end zone, they probably would have lost the game though. Don't you think? Based on like where
possibly,
things
yeah.
were
The way
going.
it turned out, and I guess it was also kind of interesting because it was a battle of field goal kickers at the end, and you
Mm,
think Justin Tucker, of course, is on the Ravens, maybe the best kicker ever, and well, it looked like he was going to win it, but it was 61 yards and it was just a little short. But like
yeah.
I thought it was going to be good because it was like really high. I thought it was like, oh, it's going to easily make it, but it was like
Yeah.
3 or 4 feet short. And then the kicker for the Colts is Gay. He kicked like 4 50+ yard field goals in
Yeah.
that game, and so like yeah. So I thought the Colts being competitive is kind of interesting, but in some ways, maybe having Minshew as the quarterback makes them more competitive in the short term than
Mm,
Richardson would. So they're actually maybe a better team with Minshew. And this was a team last year that people thought was going to be a playoff team, but then they just collapsed. They did horribly. So
yeah.
maybe they're a sleeping contender in the AFC South, just because Jacksonville's not looked very good.
Now
I guess they did beat the Colts, but that was week 1 with Richardson, and it was barely that they beat them. And then the
that was a close game.
Titans have looked just terrible. That Cleveland Tennessee game, that was pretty
Not
awful.
pretty.
No, and it's always bad too when Deshaun Watson gets rolling because he's Deshaun Watson and
We
he
don't
doesn't
like that
deserve
especially.
success. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's the one player, I guess, that we really root against actively rather than just kind of cheering when they fail rather than
Yeah.
actively rooting against. I think we would cheer if, um, you know, if Rogers did poorly, but we didn't like cheer his injury.
No.
I'm not sure if we would exactly mourn an injury to Deshaun Watson. Like like if since Chubb got hurt, we should say, oh, they injured the wrong Brown. Is what the Steelers did
Yeah.
that game.
You only
And
get so many lawsuits and still have respect on warning track power
yeah,
out. It's the
well,
that's the
just the
rule.
idea that they signed him for all that money and it was
Yeah.
guaranteed, like crazy stuff.
Well, and I mean, they didn't just sign him for that. They traded a lot for him too, right? Because it was
Yeah,
draft
draft
capital
picks and
and
yeah,
then a lot of dollars on top of the draft capital that they gave up is yeah, crazy.
and they got rid of Baker Mayfield, who has had a decent season so far with Buccaneers. He didn't do so well against the Eagles, but the Eagles are a pretty good team, and there was a little bit of bad luck, I think,
Yeah.
that the Buccaneers had here and there. But it was, you know, losing to the Eagles is that's they're probably still, even with they're one of the two best teams probably in the NFC. I think maybe you could say San Francisco with a healthy Brock Purdy is looking really, really good as well. Are you
Still hasn't lost a game he started in the regular season, I guess,
on
right?
the regular season?
Yeah.
They certainly haven't lost a game that he's finished. He started and finished. They did lose a
Yeah.
game that he finished because they lost badly to the Chiefs. And I don't think the 49ers are as good probably as people would think, simply because mostly they play in the NFC, and they played Pittsburgh and looked really good against Pittsburgh in week 1. That's week 1. Um,
And also
and
Pittsburgh, I can't figure Pittsburgh out very well either. They struggled against the Raiders, and it's like we'll talk about that. I'll think in a little bit.
yes, yeah,
Yeah, but Pittsburgh hasn't looked that great, I don't think either. So I don't know that they're actually any good. So I don't know that that's actually a barometer of
yeah,
what 49ers are, because
yeah. I don't know
it's hard to
either.
tell.
Yeah, it's hard to. Yeah, it's still only 3 weeks, and
Hmm.
after 3 weeks, I think last year the Bears were 2-1, right? And then they lost well, they might have even been three. They might have been 3-1 or so at one point, but then they went 3-14. So it was these
Yeah.
first. They talk about how important the first 3 weeks are, but really they aren't any more important than any other 3 week stretch in the season. So it's
Uh,
good that Cincinnati got their win against the Rams, because now they're 1-2. I think only two and a
yeah.
half percent of 0-3 teams make the playoffs, but that's really because usually bad teams go 0-3, not good teams. And if a good team goes 0-3, well, you think, oh, it's a blip, and they're going to turn it around. So,
Yeah.
um, are there any? What do you think the most surprising 0-3 team
Oh,
is so far? I
after
think there are
we
four
review the
0-3
0
teams.
3s, who are the
Um,
0 3s? Let's see. We've got
we have
two of them are
Minnesota.
facing each other this coming week. What?
Yes, the
Vikings,
Bears.
Broncos, Vikings and Broncos. Who else? Is that it?
The Bears.
Oh, the Bears. Yeah,
The Bears and Broncos play this week, right?
I believe that is right. Somebody
Yeah.
has to win, right? Yes, Broncos
I
at
saw I
Bears.
saw something online that said this game has been flexed to Wednesday at 3 a.m.
3 a.m.
Making fun of but no games will be flexed until week 12,
Oh,
so we're gonna have to
and
endure.
Vikings at Panthers is a matchup of 0 3s in the
I
same
think those
time slot.
are those the only 4 0-3? I think they might be. I think there are only 3 3-0s now, and there might be only 4 um, 0-3.
Yeah. So yeah, Vikings, Panthers, and Broncos, Bears. So there should only be two teams without wins after.
Yeah, so the Broncos are the only 0-3 team in the AFC.
Hmm.
And then the Vikings and Bears are both 0-3 in the same division,
Yeah.
in the Panthers. So do you have so which one I'd say it goes down, it's probably a toss up between two teams. I think Carolina is definitely not surprising that they're 0-3. But
Yeah.
and maybe to some extent I think Chicago being
It's a
0-3
little
because
surprising. I think at least Bears fans expected
yeah.
this to be, a transition from a bad season to what they hope is a playoff team in the coming years.
Yeah, you thought they'd be at least around 500 because we thought, oh, the
Yeah.
Packers are down. Um, and it's still the NFC, and you
Without,
think
Fields was maybe a year older, maybe a little
exactly.
wiser from the previous season. They got rid of Matt Nagy.
They have DJ.
So
Yeah, well, Nagy's been gone a couple of years now,
yeah,
but
yeah, but I mean now it's like everything that he's done is wiped
it's
out
all
because he's gone,
Eberflus
right?
now.
Yeah.
Um, the Eberflus, which means the river, the Elbe River in East Germany. I looked it up during the game. I was trying to think, what does Eber mean in
Hmm.
German? It's the River Elbe, uh,
Oh.
which is one of uh, the borders, some border between East Germany and East Germany. It's an East German river, yeah, and mostly. But anyway, so I guess that's where his family is from. Maybe the Bears fans want to send him back to East Germany, given how poorly, he's a defensive-minded coach. The defense has been bad,
No.
and the offense has been even worse. Under Matt Nagy, at least they made the playoffs a couple of times. That was with Mitch Trubisky as quarterback. Like they
No.
were good. He was a coach of the year. I think the Chiefs were also maybe worried about Matt Nagy being. They haven't scored any points except, they had a nice start, 41-0. It could have been more without that phantom Jawan Taylor penalty
Nice.
that almost became a huge you know call because because not only did it take points off the board and turn a touchdown to a field goal, but because it almost, perhaps it seemed like for a second, maybe cost Patrick Mahomes a few weeks or something like that, because his ankle, whatever it was, got rolled on. And
Yeah.
visions of that Jacksonville game where he came back and played, but had that been a regular season game, he probably would not have come back,
Yeah.
and he might not have even played in the next week or the next week if it had been a regular season. So he might have sat out 3 or 4 weeks, and then we saw Blaine Gabbert come in. Are you? So maybe we'll come back to the 0-3 in a second. Are you confident that Gabbert can be a capable backup if Mahomes goes down? He threw 2 interceptions in limited action on.
Yeah. Yeah, he was kind of forcing a few passes, but maybe that's like you know, what he needed to have happen where it wasn't really a threat to the game, so he could be a little
Yeah.
riskier. I would hope that if he, was had to start a game, that he wouldn't have made some of those attempts, at least anyway. But I mean, if you're asking me if I think that Gabbert could take the Chiefs to the playoffs, if he had to take over like now, I would not be confident.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so either. Like 2 or 3 games, you might think, well, that's probably okay. But
Yeah,
any more than that, this is like what the Matt Moore, Chad Henne kind of situation where you think, well, maybe a
it's the
couple
same thing.
games they can do okay. But I don't think we were ever worried that Moore, like watching Moore and Henne play as backups coming in late or even starting. I don't think they ever threw like 2 interceptions in a row, kind
Yeah,
of like that. It was so. This was so. Yeah, so I was a little worried about Gabbert, and thought maybe Bouchel should have been kept as a
yeah,
backup rather than Gabbert briefly. But
nah,
I think the Chiefs did not think that they were going to lose Bouchel if they put him on the practice squad. But I guess he was irritated enough that he decided he'd rather be on the Bills practice squad than the Chiefs practice squad,
yeah,
which is interesting to me.
yeah. I think he kind of played himself out of the role though by the last
Yeah, he
preseason.
had some picks. He had some picks in the last preseason game, but
Yeah,
it seemed, I don't know. It seemed as we talked about a few weeks ago, the quarterback keeping situation seemed odd, given the fact that, well, we thought the teams were going to keep 3 quarterbacks because now there was a rule that you could have 3 quarterbacks
yeah.
because they all get hurt, like a San Francisco rule, but that's not what ended up happening. Maybe go back to the 0-3. I think so. We have, so it's maybe, would you say it's between the Broncos and the Vikings as the most surprising 0-3 team?
I think of those, probably the Broncos be the most surprising of that, because I think the expectations were pretty high with, you know, a potentially Hall of Fame coach having taken over and bad mouthing the previous coaching
Yeah.
staff, and not, and then performing worse than his predecessor, than the team has, at least anyway, especially giving up 70 points
Yeah.
this week, Mike. 70.
That's a lot of points. Yeah, I think maybe the way the Broncos um, went 0-3 is perhaps the most surprising, because the Vikings went 0-3, but they lost 3 pretty close games that were kind of
Hmm.
coin flip games. They lost 2017 to the Buccaneers. They actually lost a fairly close game to the Eagles, 34-28, which maybe wasn't quite as close as the score indicates, but
Hmm.
uh, was better. They did better at the Eagles this year than they did last year when they were a playoff team. You might remember that
Hmm.
collapse on Monday night early in the season that Cousins had. He like all those interceptions,
Yeah.
and just was terrible primetime Kirk Cousins. And then they lost this kind of back and forth game to the Chargers, which the Chargers almost blew by like kind of going for it in their deep in their own territory and then not making it. And then fortunately there was an interception at the end. So we talked about maybe bad coaching decisions. We'll talk about the one the Raiders have, but Brandon Staley is not always the best decision maker either, and he almost caused it would have been the Chargers going 0-3 rather than
Hmm.
the Vikings. And I think if the Chargers had been 0-3, that definitely would have been our most surprising.
Yeah, for sure.
Although Chargers, are always, suspect. Although the Chargers did win, they won, but they also lost Mike Williams for the season. The Chargers
In their
famously
victory, yes. Yeah.
famously are very injury prone at the wide receiver position. It seems like because Keenan Allen gets hurt every year, Mike
Hmm.
Williams gets hurt every year, and usually it's like, it's a week to week thing. Maybe they're gone 2 or 3 weeks, but this time Williams is out for the season with a torn ACL, so maybe.
And, well, even at the running back position too, they've had issues because I think
Yeah, Eckler's been hurt.
Eckler
Yeah,
missed the last 2 weeks, and he missed parts of last season too with with injuries also. I mean, yeah, so they seem to just be kind of an injury plagued team the
yeah,
last several years. So
yeah.
that's
Somehow Herbert has gotten. Even though he's been hurt, he has escaped relatively unscathed. But
mm,
a lot of his
we're
teammates,
played through injuries even.
yeah, like
Yeah.
Joey Bosa has been injured a lot. Although
Hmm.
it seems like Nick Bosa has been injured a lot too. It seems like both the Bosas, when they're healthy, are very very good, but they're also they're banged up a lot.
Mm.
Uh, Derwin James has been hurt a lot. It seems like as well. So like some of their star players have missed a lot of time recently, and that could make a difference when it comes to the division. And somehow it seems kind of unlikely that the Chiefs are alone in first place right now, even though they lost that crazy game to Detroit,
Hmm.
and they're 2-1, and everybody else is either 1-2 or 0-3.
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
expect the Chiefs after that opening loss? Did you expect the Chiefs to be in sole possession of first place after 3 weeks?
Just 2 games later. No, I
Yeah,
would not that fast. Yeah. I mean, I expect them to take over eventually, but maybe not that quickly. Yeah. I
yeah, I
would say
would have.
about the 0-3s though, the Minnesota, I would be less surprised by them being 0-3 because they won so many like coin flip one
Yeah,
possession games last year. It seems like your luck has to run out eventually at some point, and it seems like it's out this year because
yeah, unfortunately
they're
for them.
in the same sort of situation where they're playing one score games, but they're losing them all right now. So I find that a little less surprising knowing what they did last year. This seems like a reversion to the mean in some ways
Yeah, I
statistically.
think Kirk Cousins is on pace this year for 6,000 yards passing, 51 or more touchdowns this year, and and also on pace for an 0-17 season. So somehow you would think he's played pretty well, and in the
No,
offense they just haven't. The defense hasn't been that great, and they just have lost these close games. They played some good. They played what turns out to be fairly good teams. I guess Tampa
mm,
Bay was probably at least going in, we thought they'd be the worst of those three, but
mm.
the
They
chart,
played up.
so
They played pretty well.
yeah, but they beat they lost to the Eagles, which everybody I'm sure assumed that they would, and a lot of people thought probably they probably will lose to the Chargers too at home. So they even maybe best case scenario or at least realistic scenario anyway would have been just them going 1-2.
Mm,
They have three, so it's a maybe it's not that surprising, but given the fact that they did so well last year, you think, oh, they're 0-3 now. They were a playoff team. They won 13 games last year, and now they're 0-3. So, but a lot of it's matchups, and a lot of it, first few weeks, you don't know what you're doing. It seems
yeah.
like, especially with preseason being shorter and maybe teams not taking it quite as seriously, except maybe to determine where, the roster cuts and the backups and things like that. So, I think famously, the Bill Belichick used to treat sometimes the first month of the season kind of as a trying out period, and the Patriots were often, 2-2 or, 1-3 after the first 4 weeks, but then they would win 11, 12 games and be fine. So
Maybe before we jump into the Chiefs game in more detail, why don't we chat about the Steelers Raiders matchup and decision making in that game? What
yeah,
what did you make of the Raiders not going for it on fourth down inside the 10-yard line, down
how
8
much?
late in the game?
Yeah, there's like less than 2 minutes left, right?
I
Or
think it's
something
right
like it was
around 2-minute warning.
two
Yeah,
minute warning. Yeah, and like they were down by 8 points, and so of course they score a touchdown, get the 2 point conversion, they tie. And if they score a touchdown and don't get it, well, they can still hope for a field goal at the end. So I guess the idea was, well, maybe we'll go do an onside kick, and if we make the field goal, and we'll still make it
it
down.
was
But like,
just outside the 2-minute warning, 2:22 to go when they kicked the field goal.
yeah, I don't understand that because even if you miss it, you've got the Steelers pinned pretty far back,
Hmm.
and it's still a one possession game, and it's not like the Steelers were scoring a ton of points and moving the ball at will or something like that. So it seemed like the Raiders defense was pretty good. So yeah, I was surprised that while we kick it and we still make it, we need a touchdown to win. And
Yeah, you still need a touchdown. Like you
yeah,
don't. It's not like you're in a position where a field goal does something. Well, so I mean, even if you get the touchdown but don't convert on the 2-point conversion to tie it, you still
yeah,
have the 2 minutes and 20 seconds left to get the
mhm.
ball back and then kick a field goal to win, not just tie, but win the game. But they didn't put themselves in a position to when they're still
No,
playing from behind the 8 ball. They just like stayed behind the 8 ball by kicking the field goal. Was that?
yeah, it didn't make much sense. It also we were probably also extra irritated because in our betting competition we had both picked the over, so it was in the over 43, and it ended up being 23-18. So that field goal made it 41 points, and then the Steelers just like ran the clock out. But like had they gone for the touchdown and gotten it, we would have won
Yeah,
that game. We did pick the Steelers. They were, I think they were 2.5 point underdogs. We did both pick them, not as part of
that's
our extra our locks of the week, but our general betting. We thought the Steelers were going to.
it was one of
Or was
my
that one of
the
it was one of your locks of the week, I
the
think.
the spread
I
was
agree.
one of my locks. Yes.
I agreed with that. And so
Yeah.
we both agreed on that. We both agreed on the money line, Pittsburgh, and we also both agreed on the over. And had there maybe not been such a baffling call, maybe the Raiders could have gotten the touchdown and tied it, or lost, or still lost by 2, or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe Pittsburgh would have gone to overtime and won, or at the end of
Yeah.
the half. I mean, at the end of the game. So like, yeah, that odd decision by Josh McDaniels, who I think you believe is probably the worst coach in the NFL, head coach in the NFL, now that Nathaniel Hackett has been discharged and
I
is
actually
at
had him
home.
number one last year as the worst head coach,
Yeah,
even with Hackett. But that was me. That was on my
that
personal.
was yours.
He
I was thinking, well, maybe
was on
he
my
could be
worst
better.
hires list when they signed him, and then stayed number one throughout the year, even though Nathaniel Hackett didn't show anything either. But
Well, another thing is that,
yeah,
well, why didn't they?
like 1 and 1A maybe was where those two were. Yeah,
Why didn't they try for the touchdown? Because, well, Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt in that game.
yeah.
It turns out, and is going to
Hmm.
miss maybe next week and next couple of weeks. Who knows?
I think
Uh,
is he in concussion protocol now? Is that?
Concussion for, yeah. So like, I
Yeah,
think just go for the win while you can, or go for the like, try to get it rather
yeah.
than relying. I guess McDaniel's likes Brian Hoyer because he was also a New England Patriots quarterback, and the only people that McDaniel's trusts are former Patriots, and so he liked Garoppolo.
But it was
Therefore, he
fourth and
likes.
4 from the 8. They didn't even need the touchdown. They could have just gotten the 4 yards and kept the
Oh, it
possession.
wasn't even fourth
Yeah.
and goal. It was fourth and
I
four.
thought
I
it
was
was fourth
thinking,
and goal. I was thinking it was 4th and goal, but it was actually 4th and 4 from the 8. So they're inside
yeah,
the 10. Yeah.
yeah, that's yeah,
Nah,
that
I don't
that's
I don't get it.
strange. Yeah,
But it is,
that's
yeah,
really strange.
probably, a decision
Fourth and
that we
8.
would question immediately
I
from
wouldn't have
the
done.
most
Yeah,
questionable coaches in the league. That
yeah.
seems
I would like even 4th and 8. I think is even 4th and goal from the 8 is dumb there because you need a touchdown sometime, and you might as
yeah.
well try it now because even if you don't get it, well, you can still maybe get it later. But
Well,
like
and
fourth
they're
and
and they would be
four,
pinned at their
yeah,
own end zone. Like
yeah,
maybe you force a safety somehow, get a hold in the end zone, something like that. If they do decide to
yeah,
take it back,
yeah.
I mean, you just never know what's
Maybe
going to happen. But because if you
Kenny
get a
Pickett
safety,
pulls
then
a
you get
Earl
a touchdown and
Austin.
you
Yeah,
win without even having to do anything. Yeah,
yeah. It was.
but
That's the
they
Raiders, and it
mess
just
it.
works out well as a Chiefs fan that the Raiders were so
Yeah, it's funny. But it
yeah.
cost
But
us 191 fake dollars in our betting competition, Mike. I
it
mean,
did,
we did
and
the same bet, but we want to get
we
more
we
fake
would
dollars
have we actually both for the first time on our across the board bets both finished
in the plus,
positive money, and
in
this
the
would have given
green.
us more money, and we would have
Yeah.
both done better. But
You know what's
um,
better than some fake money though, Mike? Even more fake money.
should we talk about our bets before we talk
Well,
about the Chiefs, or do you want to talk about the
so
Chiefs
let's talk about
first?
the Chiefs a little bit first, and then
Okay.
we'll get to that. Yeah.
So I guess the big story it seemed like was the appearance of Taylor Swift as perhaps Travis Kelsey's new lady friend. If you like that term, I always thought lady friend was a little creepy, so I like to say it.
So you
It's
have
not
to
quite
use
as
it
creepy.
then. Yeah.
It's not as quite as creepy as lover, maybe, but
Yeah.
lady friend. I think lady friend is funny. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
but
somewhat dismissive at the same time, but it's like
well, it's because you think girlfriend is too like juvenile,
immature. Yes.
but lady friend subs like you think of like this kind of um kind of cigarette smoking kind of I think leathery faced woman at a bowling alley would be somebody's
Yeah.
lady friend. I think is what I
Hmm.
think when I hear that term, like bad kind of long perm maybe
Hmm.
and
1980s
yeah.
bowling alley denizens.
Yes,
That's what
yes.
you're. Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of talked like this, with a, kind of like a latter years Lucille Ball kind of cigarette voice.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, yeah, or raw, or if you saw Monsters Inc., Roz from Monsters Inc., the monster who was always keeping her. I'll keep my eye on you, keeping his eye out for Mike Wazowski and his shenanigans, but. Um, yeah, lady friend. So anyway, his possible lady friend,
Yes.
was there, and that was the biggest story because it's just it seems like everybody is talking about it, and there were pictures of video of them leaving the stadium together. They went to what restaurant was it that they went to? The
Prime Social, I think it's
Prime
what it is.
Social
Yeah.
rooftop thing.
I
Yeah,
heard your early reports were incorrect as to
I
what.
thought it was Q39 I had heard, but maybe that was a different time. But and then they were seen in a car near Briarcliff West, which is where Travis Kelsey lives. And my mom doesn't live in Briarcliff. My mom and dad don't live in Briarcliff West. They live in Claremont North, which is right across
Yeah.
169.
Radcliffe
169.
Classic, not
Yeah, then
Radcliffe
they live in the
West.
old section of near Briarcliff. And my mom has seen Travis Kelsey jog in the neighborhood before. So
Did she yell at him out of the car when she's driving by and sees him?
no, it was past their house.
Oh, their actual house even.
Yeah,
As she
yeah.
like yelled at him from the window then.
I don't think she did,
No.
but no, she was. It seems like every
Pick up the pace or nothing.
yeah,
She
yeah.
said no.
No, so maybe we'll see Taylor and Travis in our old neighborhood,
There you
uh,
go.
doing stuff. But anyway, I don't know. I don't really have much to say about it, but it's just interesting. I think
No.
that
I
is
did see an
that
article this morning saying that Kelsey's jersey sales have increased by like 5 times what they were
yeah,
before.
and it's a little strange because Kelsey wasn't exactly an unknown
Yeah.
player. He hosted Saturday Night Live
Right.
6 months ago. He was famous enough
Yeah.
for that. Like he was maybe one of the most famous non-quarterbacks in the league. Maybe the most famous non-quarterback in the league, along with his brother, because that was such a big story
Right.
for the Super Bowl. And now they have that.
We have a
Amazon
podcast together.
documentary.
And,
The Amazon documentary. They have a podcast.
yep.
That's like they're like the kind of like the Manning brothers, I think, in terms of popularity.
Yeah.
Uh,
But being
and
active players, even,
yeah,
yeah.
and both I think both Hall of Fame level players, maybe in a way that the Mannings aren't, because Eli's borderline. I would say probably both Kelseys are shoe-ins at this point. It seems
I
like given
think.
their
Yeah.
accolades, but yeah. So like yeah, that was kind of a fun story, and they showed her next to Travis's mom in the fancy suite and stuff like that, and being excited.
Yeah.
And Travis got his touchdown in the second half from Mahomes, and it's like and Mahomes is probably I don't know if he's maybe worldwide, maybe not on par with Taylor Swift, but maybe in the United States, he might be as almost as famous as Taylor Swift. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like there's a lot of big stars, that the Chiefs have with them now. It's kind of unusual that the Chiefs are this like maybe America's team now. Do you think if
It's
the Swifties,
it's
get on board?
it's like right on the edge there. Yeah. I mean, if stars are coming to watch the games, then that's a big difference in Kansas City present to Kansas City past, because you wouldn't see anybody outside of like people who are from Kansas City
Yeah, you see Paul
became
Rudd.
famous.
At least it's still big stars. Like yeah, it's Paul Rudd or
Yeah,
it's
Jason Sudeikis and
I guess yeah.
those
Yeah.
those types. Yes, that
Usually SNL adjacent
yeah,
uh, people or people who
Rob Riggle or
yeah
yeah,
yeah
they're at least relatively famous.
yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, Paul Rudd is by far the most famous. But like you would see
yeah,
like
he's
John
remarkable.
Hamm is from St. Louis, but you would see him show up at like the softball games and the football maybe because once the Rams aren't around anymore, so like maybe they get more of the Missouri
Yeah,
folks on their side. But yeah, it's a little and like Mahomes had a lot of Mahomes has a lot of star power. Kelsey even before this had a lot of star power, so it was like um, they have they're both in like commercials and things like
yeah,
that. Seems like Mahomes was in every other commercial that was on. He was he's in Subway. He was State Farm.
State Farm,
Probably
especially.
locally. Does he still do Hy-Vee commercials locally?
Yeah, I think
Things
so.
like that. And like bank, he has like some bank. There's some bank I think that he's
Hmm.
associated with as well.
Yeah, yeah,
But like he does, yeah. Um, anyway, it's kind of fun to be the center of
yeah,
the football universe, and maybe now it's the center of the kind of pop celebrity universe with Taylor Swift is
yeah. Well,
on
it's
board.
great. It's great for the NFL because it's an entirely untapped fan base potential, at least anyway.
Yeah,
For
there's a lot of young women watching that
yeah,
are not really sports fans that might. I think Chiefs tickets on StubHub and stuff also the prices went way up because there was so much more demand. I guess people are hoping that Taylor will be there. I don't know if she'll be coming to every Kansas City home game. It's like she's on tour and stuff, but she might. I wouldn't
I
be
think
surprised if she was at the Jets game next week, which is in New York,
yeah,
um,
possible.
and that's probably the only thing that is keeping that matchup maybe looking any way tantalizing because
Yeah,
we thought it was going to be Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes, the State
yeah,
Farm bowl, but
right, right.
Rodgers is hurt, 4 plays into his season,
Mm,
and the Jets are looking terrible, so there's that this will help. I guess the NFL, I'm sure, is very happy, and
yeah,
you wonder, I guess, is it a publicity stunt or is it actual relationship? But I don't know.
yeah. Who knows? There's no way for us to know this.
No,
We
I'm
can
sure.
only look at what we've seen, and
But if they break up or they stay together, I'm sure it'll be interesting songs on the new Taylor Swift
yes,
albums.
that's what we have to look forward to.
Yeah,
Yes,
I've never bought a Taylor Swift album. I've heard some of her songs on the radio, but I don't
yeah.
pretend to be. Um,
Not a
I
Swiftie.
No, I have listened to Ryan Adams did a
Yes.
cover of the 1989 Taylor Swift album. Then
Yeah,
he did the whole album as a cover, and
yeah.
that was kind of good. And then I don't think Taylor Swift is that bad, but it's just not. I don't know. It's just not stuff I listen to usually.
I don't think you're her target audience.
I am not. I'm not a. I'm not a.
And to be clear, neither am I. So
I'm not a woman
we
between
we are not
the ages
her
of
target
8
audience.
and
No.
28 years old, uh,
Yeah, we're outside.
or 48 or whatever. It's most primarily a female audience, and so it's what the NFL is traditionally primarily a male audience. Although women are, I think, more into it uh, over the past decade or so than were before. I think the NFL's done a lot of good job reaching out to um, maybe non-traditional viewers, international
Yeah,
audiences, women, things like that. So
yeah, that's great.
yeah, so that's if there are more viewers, I think that helps the NFL, and it maybe helps salaries go up. Like Mahomes, he renegotiated his salary to, as
Yeah,
they kind of pushed forward some money. I think it's the same money. I don't. It was just moved around a little bit to create a little bit more. He made more money up front than now. I think he's the highest paid or one of the highest paid, top 2 or 3 highest paid quarterbacks. Where he was like down to like number 9
he'd
last
slipped in
year.
his like
This year.
AAV, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of salary cap, I think he was the number 1 already
For this season, he was
this season.
the
Yeah.
highest paid quarterback. Yes, but I know last week we talked about the Chiefs Bears game being a potential like get right game. Are whatever your concerns were with the Chiefs coming into that game, are they gone now, or are you still somewhat worried about the team going forward?
They're alleviated mostly. I think the defense, I feel really good about the defense.
They look
Uh,
fantastic so far.
they
It's
look
been
great. The second,
yeah,
like it had been like it seemed like most of the defensive line was really, but the secondary also began looking good. Also, Nick Bolton was out this game, and Tranquil had a good game. It seemed like in his place. I don't remember his name a lot, but it seems like there weren't a lot of big gains. They were able to contain Justin Fields pretty well. So like the defense was great. It
yeah,
seemed like I still feel like the offense needs something, and it seems like they're still relying a little too much on Patrick Mahomes' magic rather than like a scheme
yeah,
that can get people open like Miami has or San Francisco has. Where Brock Purdy and Tua are putting up big numbers, big high passer ratings without really any super spectacular plays. Like probably the longest play that ended up counting for the Chiefs was that throw to Justin Watson, like when like
mhm,
Mahomes like sidearm like underhanded it like
yeah,
45 yards down the field to Watts. Like he still does these like amazing things, but we don't want like. But it's usually because we run it on first down or we have an incomplete pass, then we run it on second down and it's like 3rd and 8. We got to do something, and Mahomes usually he'll make a big throw or he'll scramble. But
yeah,
but the wide receivers are not as reliable this year. I don't think they haven't been so far. Um, so I'm still a little worried there. Jarrett McKinnon, I was happy to see him more involved. He had 2
mm,
touchdowns. I think every running back had a touchdown.
yep.
Pacheco and Edwards-Helaire were both had rushing touchdowns, but
Mhm.
um,
McKinnon had 2 receiving touchdowns.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I don't know. And Kelsey got involved a little bit more. So I said, and it seems like the offensive line has played well, except for the weird penalties on Taylor. But
mm,
I'm still a little uncomfortable with the offense because I think it still relies too much on, well, we're going to kind of putz around on first and second down because we know Mahomes can turn
yeah,
a magic on third down. And I don't, I'd rather just not have to get to third down and
yeah,
just just call better plays on first and second down.
yeah. Or you could do like Miami did and just average 10 yards per play, so you get a first down on every single play if you just hit your average.
Yeah,
You could do that. You could
yeah.
do that.
Yeah, if we had Tyreek back and
Yeah.
Jalen Waddle was out that game even.
Well, I mean, I think the big difference between what the Chiefs and some of the other teams that have performed well with like the big passing yards is the running game hasn't really been there yet for the Chiefs. A little
Yeah.
bit has come up in
Pacheco
in
has
the most
gotten
recent
some
game.
big runs, but like
Yeah,
Edwards-Helaire really hasn't had any good running.
It definitely hasn't been consistent, and I think a
Yeah,
lot of it is they haven't gone to a lot of the short passing, like the sort of like pseudo runs that they do. They're essentially run plays, but they're just so short of a pass that they
yeah,
act as like a 4 yard rush. They haven't really done that quite as much as they had done in previous
yeah.
seasons.
You
But
wonder if that is that a Nagy versus
yeah,
enemy thing. He's still trying to figure things out
it
as
could
the
be because you can sort
coordinator.
of turn your short passing game as essentially a running game, and they just haven't quite
Yeah,
done.
or maybe it's just like Will Reed is famous for not wanting to show his opponents
That
anything
may
on
that may be a lot of
tape.
what it is.
And so, like, if the Chiefs can win with just crappy plays on first and second, and then we'll let Mahomes do what he wants on third down, and we can still, against most teams, we'll win, and we would have, and the
Yeah.
Chiefs would have won all three games had like there not been historically bad receiver play in week one, and they only
Yeah.
lost by 1 point, even without Kelsey and without Jones. So, like,
Mhm.
it's the Chiefs have been able to win the last 2 weeks pretty comfortably. It turns out.
Yeah.
Um, so maybe that could. I think maybe that could be it too. I don't know. But you still kind of worry, like when you see, especially these other teams just blowing people out. Why is the Chiefs' offense look so difficult?
Mm.
And why they aren't making things look easy like
Yeah.
Miami is or like San Francisco is.
So I would be a little bit less worried about that because it's only week 3 and the receiving core is pretty young and haven't had a lot of time to gel with Mahomes yet. I think that's one of those things that comes along as the season progresses for the passing game, at least
I
anyway.
hope so. It seems like Rasheed Rice has been, at least compared to like Sky Moore last year, has
Mm.
is
He's
doing
starting further
more.
ahead, right? Than Sky
Yeah,
Moore did at the beginning of
he
last
had
season.
two very near touchdowns. He got tackled like at the 1 yard line twice
Mm-hmm.
after kind of big gains. Moore has looked better, I think, when he's gotten the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Tony has been kind of absent lately.
He had
And
one catch in the last one, only one target, one catch minus 1 yards. I think that was that little forward pass. That's not really a forward pass, but
yeah,
I think
that
that's
it,
the only touch he had in the game
yeah,
was
it
that.
worked well to McKinnon. That play hasn't worked as well lately. It seems like
Yeah.
it worked well to McKinnon when he got his first touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, I don't know. Yeah, so it's, yeah, like you said, it's still very early, and I think the Chiefs will probably have another one of these kind of get right, kind of in some ways practice types of games with the Jets, or at least that's what you hope. The Jets defense is probably, a bit better, maybe more than a
Mm-hmm.
bit better than the Bears, but their offense is probably every bit as inept as the Bears offense with Wilson, and they haven't even, it doesn't seem like they've incorporated, they have Garrett Wilson's a good receiver, but and they have some good running backs, but I don't know if they're much better or any better than the Bears offense.
It doesn't look that way. Yeah.
Yeah, the
But there
yeah,
were
so
crazy upsets in week 3. That doesn't mean there's not going to be crazy
yeah,
upsets in week 4 too. So you
yeah,
just
so the Bears have
Chiefs aren't prepared.
scored. I mean, the Jets have scored 36 points in 3 games. Or no, they've scored 42 points in 3 games. So they're averaging 14 points a game. They scored 22 against the Bills.
They've scored 42 points. The Chiefs had 41 points in the last game. Yeah.
Yeah, they scored 40. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, but the Chiefs have only scored 37 points. Other than that, they were 17-9 and 20 lost 21-20. So they've
Yeah.
scored a little less than 80 points over 3 games, which is still an average of more than 25 points.
Yeah.
26 point 66666, I guess, points.
Yeah.
But what's Miami averaging? I guess it's that 70-point game. They scored that's going to skew things for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
That, because 70 points over 17 weeks, that's 4 points. So even if they only scored that one time 70 points and were shut out every other game, they would have over 4 points a game. So, like, you think of, well, if a team scores each time, if you add up over the course of the year, like, every week's probably about 2 to 3 points at the most per 2 points probably is big. 30 would be 34 points if you over a 17 game season. So
So
but
yeah, so their
what
average is going to be influenced by something like 4 points total for
yeah, your
per
average
game
is
average.
but usually you average by
Yeah.
1 to 2 points each week, contributing to your average,
Yeah.
and there, so that was a huge win. Does that make them? Do you think the team to beat right now in the AFC?
Well, unless you just consider last year's champion to be by
Default, yeah.
definition the team to beat until they're eliminated. But on this season, I think they are definitely that one and 1A sort of concept, right? As a who are the
Mhm.
teams that are going to get the most attention, at least anyway. So putting
Yeah,
up
it looked
40
like
points is crazy.
maybe Baltimore would going into this week, but
Yeah.
they didn't do very
Dallas
well.
probably was on that list, and then they're probably
Yeah,
not on the list right now as being
yeah. I
the
think you
team
still
to
have
beat.
Philadelphia, San Francisco,
Yeah.
and maybe Buffalo again. Maybe you might
Yeah.
say they've seemed to recover. So Buffalo and Miami are playing next week, so that's going to be a big game. But maybe before we talk about next week's games and things like that, do we want to talk about our locks of the week that
Or on air
turned out,
picks.
at least on your side, turned out to be veritable shoe-ins. On my side, not so well, but
Yeah. Well,
you,
this was a first for me this week in our now 21 weeks of regular season games. This was a first for me. Finally, long overdue 3-0 week for me.
three
Yes.
and 0. I had a 3-0 week last week. I've had 3-0 weeks here and there.
You've had,
I'm
you've
up
had
and down.
several, and I've had a lot of 2-1 weeks, but now my
Never a
first
3-0
3-0.
now. Does it feel good to have a 3-0 week? Do you feel
It's kind of a relief to have that finally out of the way now. So yeah.
yeah. We were both, I think, 3-3 coming into this week, and now you've
Right.
gained like 6-3, and now I'm down to 4-5.
Yeah.
But we want to talk about let's talk about your first win of the week.
Well, since we just mentioned the Miami Denver game, that I had Miami -6.5 against Denver in Miami was my first pick, and they had 43.5 points to spare on covering
Yes.
that spread. So comfortably safe game from about the second quarter on. I was not worried about that one anyway.
I agreed with you on that game and on the money line. We both thought Miami would win, and also the over under. We thought it was going to go over.
Mhm.
So on our every game bet competition, we finished even on that game. But you won that one on our shoe end of the
It
week because
was
you
yeah.
wisely picked Miami as an easy 6.5 point favorite, and they were a 50 point winner. So
Right.
well done.
43.5 points to spare. But
Yeah,
yeah, it wasn't on your confidence list up in the top three anyway, I guess.
it wasn't on my top three. The only spread pick that I picked this week was Tennessee at Cleveland, and we thought, oh, Nick Chubb's not playing. Cleveland's kind of uh, not doing so well.
Buttering at
John
least,
Watson
yeah.
isn't playing very well. Tennessee, we think, oh, maybe they're gonna kind of get things turned around. They got a big win against the Chargers at home. They lost barely on the road to New Orleans, a decent team. So we thought, okay, so getting 3.5 points at Cleveland. So even if they lose by a field goal, I still win that bet.
Mhm.
But no, they really laid an egg in Cleveland. They lost 27-3. I believe that is when Cleveland's so at home this season, Cleveland has only allowed 6 total points. They've allowed 3 points in there. So they won their first game against Cincinnati 24-3, and they won this game at home 27-3. That was sandwiched between those was a 26-22 loss at Pittsburgh. So I thought, well, I think Tennessee's on the rise. Maybe they can't be that bad. Tannehill's got to get things figured out. They still have Derrick Henry. But no, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't throw the ball. I think they had like 95 total yards of offense the whole game.
Yeah, it's
So that was just lousy. So they lost 27-3. So I missed.
94 total yards. Only averaged 2.1 yards a play for the whole game.
Yeah, it's 5 times less than what the Miami Dolphins averaged for their play. They averaged over, I think, 10 yards, maybe even higher per play. So Tennessee laid an egg in Cleveland. The Cleveland, Tennessee. I wonder who do you think the fans in Cleveland, Tennessee were rooting for? Were they rooting for? I would guess they were rooting for Tennessee at the beginning, and maybe they switched allegiances to Cleveland.
The
Uh,
namesake.
Later, just to say kind of
Ugh.
settle things because that was such a bad game.
Yeah.
Um, how about your second bet, Dr. Scath? That also went as maybe not equally as well, but it also turned out to be a win for you.
It could have gone wrong at the end, but I had Chargers even at Minnesota. So it was essentially a pick'em game, but I had the Chargers in that one. It could have gone the other way.
Yeah,
But yeah, the Chargers ended up holding on for a 4-point win.
yeah,
28-24, I think. Yeah.
yes, 2024. Yeah, I also bet on that game and as part of my locks of the week, and I bet the under. It was under 54.5. I think it dropped down to 53.5 at one point, but the
Mhm.
final was 2024, so only 52 points were scored, and that was fortunate because there was a late interception by the Chargers. It seemed like in the first half there wasn't a whole lot of scoring, so I thought it might be comfortably under, but then there was a lot of scoring. I was worried it was going to be comfortably over, and I was going to miss that one. But
Yeah.
I did manage to sneak that one in. I had thought that Minnesota in our wall to wall betting action, I thought that Minnesota was going to pull that out at home. Partly I did that because I knew you were picking the Chargers, and I wanted it to be interesting. But also I thought, well, it's Minnesota at home, and the Chargers are going to do something dumb, which they did. But fortunately, it didn't. They decided to go for it deep in their own territory,
Yeah.
like up their own 25 or something.
Well,
So they,
so the Chargers went for it. No, what was it? Minnesota went for it on 4th and 2, 4th and goal from the Chargers 2, did not get it. Then the Chargers went for it on 4th and 1 from their own 24 and did not get it.
yes.
And then Minnesota had a 1st and goal at the Chargers 6 and threw an interception.
Yeah, it was.
Ooh.
So had they not thrown had they thrown the interception or not thrown the interception, got a touchdown, it would have pushed the game over. So I would have lost that one and won the other one. So I was going to break even either way. So I'm not that upset about it how it ended, but
Yeah.
um, I am. I guess I would have wanted maybe to turn the other way simply because I wanted to stay closer with you in our um, on-air picks. But
Right.
yeah, that was Brandon
Well, you
Staley is
did take Minnesota in the mega picks
yes.
to win and cover the 1.5 point
Yeah, it
spread.
ended up switching. Yeah.
Yeah, so that could have gone completely the other way.
Yeah, it would have helped me. I guess that if Minnesota won, that would have helped me for the money
Yeah,
line. We did poorly on the money line picks because a
was
lot of them.
our worst category, which shouldn't be
Yeah,
the easiest
we
one,
both
right?
finished above 500 and above in the profit zone on the spread and the over under, but the money line because so many favorites lost outright rather than just
Mm,
we thought maybe I thought maybe Dallas wouldn't cover the big spread or things
yeah,
like that. But yeah, so that didn't work out so well. But um, your third pick also worked out well for you, Dr. Scav.
yeah. I my last bet was in that Pittsburgh Las Vegas game. I had Pittsburgh plus 2.5. I kind of assumed, my guess was that Pittsburgh was going to win that game anyway, but I didn't expect them to win it like in that fashion, at least
Yeah, at one
with
point,
the Raiders, like, shooting themselves in the foot essentially by
yeah,
decision making. But
yeah, it ended up being a closer game than I had thought it was. Like, because at one
mm,
point it looked like the Steelers were going to run away with it, but then the Raiders kind of kept it close, and it's maybe had they had some better coaching decisions, could have won or gotten but it still might have ended up being a Steelers cover. Had they won because we got 2.5 points there. Um, but it turned out to be a big, maybe Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, so maybe the Raiders are, Mike Williams got hurt for the Chargers, so even the 1 and 2 teams in the Chiefs division have some big injuries they're going to deal with, and maybe you know maybe it's Garoppolo's only a temporary thing, but
Hmm.
Williams has gone out for the season now, so that's helping the Chiefs division chances, especially with Denver being so bad. And if Denver loses to Chicago next week, that's really, I think, has to spell the end of Denver's chances, and that's a
Yeah.
rebuild. And you would think,
Already a
or
rebuild, isn't that? No.
I think they thought, well, we think it's just we're just trying to recover from the Nathaniel Hackett era,
Yeah.
and we can challenge for a playoff spot in this first year because we still have Russell Wilson, who isn't playing terribly this year. I think his quarterback passer rating is the same as Mahomes is. Both,
Is it?
yeah, I think they're both 99.5
Oh wow.
passer rating. I think if Mahomes had played the entire game against the Bears, his would have been higher because the way the Chiefs were dismantling the Bears after that first drive where they didn't get any points. The Chiefs just rolled every time, and also if that phantom penalty hadn't been called, there's a couple of really kind of screwy things that happened that kind of lowered Mahomes's passer rating. He would have had 4 touchdowns and 300 plus
Yeah.
yards, and
Or
so
those,
anyway,
early in the season, the receiver aided interceptions.
yeah, the Terry Tony pick 6 that could have been
Yeah.
very different. So like, yeah, it's this happen. I guess it happens probably every quarterback, but it's it's magnified more at the beginning.
Yeah.
But my third pick also turned out to be close, but no cigar, and that was the Rams at Cincinnati. I thought that game was going to feature a little bit more offense, and the over under was only 43.5. I thought Cincinnati, which hadn't been scoring a lot of points, was going to turn things around. I also thought the Rams offense was pretty good, but yeah, they couldn't do anything really, and they ended up. I think the Rams did have a touchdown, an obvious touchdown, called out of bounds. You remember that play? Like you could see, like they did a replay, and his foot was clearly in bounds. It was on turf too. You like see the little divot that he made. It was like
Yeah.
an inch inside the line, but somehow they decided to call him out even after replay, which
No.
didn't make any sense to me. That could have changed the game. I also thought the Rams were going to win that game, but it ended up being the Rams only got a couple of 3 field goals, and they
Then a single
and so
touchdown late. Yeah.
in the touchdown later, but it was not enough to
It
help.
was very late. It was, yeah, within the 2-minute warning that that they finally got in the end zone.
Yeah, it ended up being 19-16. The game was closer. The final score was closer than maybe indicated, but the Bengals didn't score any points either. They were pretty bad too. Burrow, I think, has no touchdown passes
Mm-hmm.
on the year. He
Is that
threw
right? Is that right? I know he didn't have
he
any in this
threw
game. I
for
didn't.
he threw for a decent number of yards. For 259, he was 26 of 49, 259 yards, so not too bad. Only
26 to
5.3.
49 is not very good.
Yeah, the percentage wasn't very good, but the yardage was decent.
The yards is fine. Yeah.
One interception, only 5.3 yards per attempt, and I guess Burrow does have 2 touchdowns. He's 2 touchdowns and 2 picks this year. He has
But at the time we recorded our episode last week, we weren't sure entirely that Burrow was going to play in the game,
no,
so it was a little risky making the bet that early, at least anyway, right? Like we were, are forced to by our circumstances on the show anyway. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He's got his total passer rating is really low. It's can't find it right now, but it's like um,
38.1 is his QBR.
QBR is 20. Yeah, his QBR is 28th out of, I guess, 32
Yes.
teams. Um,
Yes.
his rating is
66.
33rd. He is
Yeah.
66.2. So his rating of the 34 qualifying quarterbacks, uh, he is behind Bryce Young, Justin Fields, Ryan Tannehill, Daniel Jones, Sam Howell, in the 60s. Yeah, he's only ahead of Zach Wilson at this point. So he is the 33rd best out of 34 qualifying quarterbacks. So
Ouch.
fortunately, Blaine Gabbert is not in that list, but he would be on the bottom of that list, I think, given his no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But yeah, so
Yeah.
something is still wrong with Burrow. Maybe it's his calf injury. So this is one of those things where you think, well, maybe they're gonna had the Rams. I mean, had the Rams won that game, you think, well, maybe Burrow is just going to get sidelined because they don't think they might just say, well, we we're just going to retool for next year and hope we get a high draft pick because we think, well, probably T Higgins is going to be gone or somebody else is going to be good. So let's just whatever
Mhm.
it seems like whatever is wrong with his calf is maybe a bigger deal than it seems to be. Maybe people are letting on. I don't know.
It could
He was a
be.
questionable play, I think, already, and yeah. Um, but I think that there's still a lot of hope that the Bengals will make the playoffs. But yeah, they were fortunate to win that game, and
Stave off the also 0-3 season. Yeah.
yeah. So that's this week. Do any more comments on this week's games? We've
Yeah, so just the summary from week 3 then on
oh
the on-air picks, then yeah, you were 1-2 this week, 4-5 now, total down $100 is all. Cool. That's, I think, much better than where we were last season at this point.
yes, yeah.
And I'm at 6-3 now, plus $300 for the on-air picks, which is hugely above where I was. I was a tier like 2-7, I think, last
Yeah,
year.
you
I was
caught up.
totally
You were down most of the season, then you kind of gradually caught up. And then you
finally
passed
caught
me,
up.
and then we were kind of back and forth, and then you ended up finishing just barely ahead. On our
by a put. I had one loss that became a push, I think, was what it was the difference between our last year's total. So it's probably
on
what we're gonna end up this year. It'll be something like that as well.
we both did fairly well on our every game bets this week. This was my first positive week, so I'm trending upward. That week one was terrible. I lost like $1,600 or something like that. Then last week I lost like $100. Now I gained like $100.
Yep.
So I am treading water the last 2 weeks, but maybe going a little bit closer to shore.
Trending. Yeah, you're trending in the right
Trending,
direction.
trending in the right direction. You have been positive all 3 weeks.
Barely
And
positive week 1, but about the same in weeks 2 and 3. Yeah.
so so how much you have made a total
One
of
$1,008.35 is what I'm plus on the season now.
yeah, I am minus $1,823, $24 about.
No.
So yeah, you are $2,800 ahead of me
You
right
got some
now.
catching up to do, Mike.
It was mainly week one that was my problem, and
Yeah.
that was I'd say 22,000 at least of the 2,800 was week one, and it's
Yeah,
been
was it? It was like it was about $2,000 down, wasn't it?
yeah, I was
1862
1862 down, and then last week I was
down like 50-ish,
$54 down. So then and then this week I'm up 93,
93.59.
something like that. Yeah, so I am going. So I think week one was just a horrible blip, but hopefully I can have a positive, wonderful blip one of these weeks to make up for that one, and then kind of break even-ish or be slightly above on
Yes.
average. Going forward, you are
But you
consistent.
did cross the 54% mark though for your picks. So you were at 57.5% this week. 27
Yeah,
47. I
Yeah,
had two picks more correct as all, 29 to 47. But that was
yeah,
about a $360 swing though for those two.
yeah.
So
It's the money line that has been killing me. And this time, I lost 400. I lost $416 on the money line this week. I
yeah.
I gained about $400 on the spread.
Yep.
And I gained a little over $100 on the over under. So
Unders, yeah.
I think I'm getting the hang of that. Maybe
What I
money
thought was
line.
interesting about the big pick, the big board anyway for us, the picks that we agreed on, we did quite well with. So I wonder if we combined our strategies and actually like as a committee, like sat down and decided on picks, if we would do
Our
even
powers
better collectively.
combined, Captain Planet style. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if that would be the case because I think some of these things I think we could have talked each other into what ended up being
Maybe.
the correct pick.
We also could have talked each other out of it and done
That's
this,
the
you
other.
know. But I would say, well,
That's the
probably,
other of the possibilities.
probably though we would. I don't know. We would have been positive. I think we would have at least talked each other. Like we say, we average it out, talk each other in or out. We at least would have gotten. I don't know, together. I don't. We wouldn't have done any worse than it. You know, but
Yeah.
yeah, when we did both happen to agree, maybe the idea is, well, we should just make the bets where we agree and not try to talk each other into it. If
Yeah.
we both agree, then we do very well. At least this last week we did.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, maybe we'll have to do that as an analysis at some point. Will be to actually go back and see on the picks we agreed on what is our percentage versus our individual percentages. So
yeah. So
if we use those as our confidence pool, then maybe that actually is the better choice. I know at one time, I think this week we were, I think 11 of the first 16 picks that we had that were the same, that we agreed on, we were correct on,
yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
which is not bad at all. 11 out of 16 is a pretty good clip for betting.
Yeah, and that was the over under or the spread. So, and those are the ones that are So that's pretty good. Yeah, maybe we'll keep an eye on where we agree and see how well that does going forward. But
Yeah.
should we move on to baseball quickly, or you want to talk about college football first?
We're still talking about betting, so maybe we should do the college football story first.
Yeah, college football story is interesting. Um, I think we both have slightly different opinions on the University of Colorado and their current football team. I think I was they were blown out 42-6 by Oregon this weekend. They were the hottest team. In some ways, the Taylor Swift story is what became the big story in football, and Dion kind of was pushed to the side, given the fact that the Colorado Buffaloes did so poorly in Eugene, Oregon against the Ducks. They lost 42-6. But many bettors were on the side of Colorado Buffaloes, and there were articles where the Buffaloes bettors had influenced the money line picks, and so the Colorado was a 21-point underdog, and a lot of people picked Colorado to win outright, and it depressed the odds or the money line. Usually would be, well, you have to bet about $1,200 to win $100 if you want to bet the favorite, but it was down to about half of that almost because of the extra Colorado bets, and a lot of professional gamblers and of course the Vegas sports books made a lot of money when Oregon blew out Colorado, which I guess is what the sharps thought. The squares were all over Colorado. I think the spread maybe turned out about even because it was a big spread, and some people probably thought, well, maybe Colorado, even if we think they're going to lose, might cover 21 points. But yeah, so that was the big story. Were you surprised about what happened with Colorado?
Not terribly surprised. It was amusing watching. So I mean, I watch a fair amount of ESPN during the week, and most of the analysts have been talking about that game, and it's a big hype train essentially for Colorado is what it ends up being anyway. So the talking heads really, even though on the non-gambling type shows, they'd made a big deal saying about like how wide the spread was, and then almost all of the analysts, at least on some of the shows I was watching, were saying that Colorado was likely to cover the spread, not likely to win, but they didn't even come close to the spread. And so I'm sure there are influenceable people who listen to those analysts that were betting on the wrong side of that. And it was ugly early, and it stayed ugly for that game, at least anyway. It wasn't, they never threatened. I mean, it didn't look like Colorado may even score in that game until they finally got a touchdown late, I guess, right? So relatively late, second half.
So if you go to FanDuel, look at the NCAA football games. There's actually its own tab is Colorado on its tab now. So it probably was there last week as well. But Colorado is playing USC because at home. USC is favored by 21.5. Their money line is minus 1450. So it seems like that hasn't been depressed by Colorado supporters. So if anything, it seems like there's actually a little more. It's actually a little high. Like you think it might be about minus 1200 rather than minus 1450. So you could bet Colorado. If you bet $100, you will win $810 on the money line, and the spread is 21.5. Over under is 73.5. I think I like the under maybe there. That's really, really high.
That's a lot of
points. Yeah, I'd say under, but
yeah,
that seems like it's begging you to take the under. So maybe that can be. We can keep an eye on that. Is that? Would you say under? That would be our college lock.
I don't know how you could take the over on that. That seems insanely high, especially after what Colorado did this most recent week against Oregon. And USC's ranked also, aren't they?
Yeah, they're ranked. Well, it's Caleb Williams. He's the Heisman Trophy reigning Heisman Trophy winner. It's like you think they're going to score a lot of points, but you think, well, it would have to, like, even if it's a close-ish. So let's say if they win by 3 touchdowns, which is what the spread indicates, it would have to be like a 48-27 type of game for it to go over. And that seems like
75, right? So
yeah. So 47-26, 48-26 would be over, 47-26 would be under. But that would also 48-26 would cover if you wanted a USC, 47-26 would cover if you and under if you wanted Colorado. But like that seems high, I think, on both sides.
You would guess that 42-14 type of score would be more likely. Is what I would guess anyway, but
it's like I think if you bet the over, you have to bet USC blowing Colorado out.
That's what you would assume.
Like 55-20 or something was what you
as a bettor, the only thing you don't want to see is like a 35 or like a 28-28 tie that goes to a series of overtimes where it's like, oh, it's well under, and then it is a tie, and then it goes like
well, college overtime's a little different now because they just later overtimes are just 2-point conversions, so they don't have to score as many points. So
but it could still happen though.
It could still happen,
the offenses are prolific enough, and they could do the same thing, whatever it is.
I think that over. I can't see it going over. Well,
I wouldn't think so. If I was just betting this outright, I'd take USC points and the money line, obviously, and then the under. I think that's what I would assume that you're probably thinking also if you were looking at this game as a betting perspective.
I do under USC money line, certainly. Maybe I could say Colorado keeps it close since it's at home. But I would only think, well, maybe it's 21.5 is so big. It's like maybe it's 17 points, maybe it's 2 touchdowns, but I still don't see it like Colorado. I don't see them scoring that many points.
But maybe the question is, do you think the people who bet on Colorado in the last game spread and money line are scared away this week and won't touch this game because of what happened last week.
Possibly, yeah. I think the air is
Or do you
right.
think they're resilient enough that they're still going to bet even though they knew what happened last week and they're just going to do it anyway?
Well, I don't know. Looking at Colorado's previous games, Colorado's first game was at TCU. They won 45-42. So that went up to 87. That's over.
Yeah.
And then one against Nebraska at home, 36-14. That would be 50 total points. The next game was Colorado State, which they won 43-35. That's 78 total. So that would have been over. So I guess
But
two out of their
that
four
was the
games.
multiple overtime scenario though too. The point,
Yeah.
points were inflated because
Yeah.
they went
Two out of, but I guess you say 2 out of their 4 went over.
Yeah.
But I would say, but then when they play a really good team, they only scored 6 points and they gave up 42. So I don't think USC is going to score like 60 points to 14 or whatever. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I could, even if it's a blowout, I think it's 48-14 or something, and that's comfortably under. So yeah, I like the under. I could see it. I could see Colorado keeping it close, but then I think it would be like, it might be 35-24 or something would be a close game, and that's still pretty well under. So like, I just don't see it. So I if I had to be on the spread, maybe I'd say, well, maybe Colorado will keep it close this time. No. Relatively close, under 21.5, but I don't have a good feel that one way or another. Maybe we can keep an eye on it. I'll take Colorado on the with the points.
Yeah.
But yeah, money line USC under like you.
Yeah. So we would just disagree on the spread at this point.
Yeah, and I'm partly doing that just to make it interesting because I don't really have a feel one way or another. And maybe this is one of the times where we should just agree with each other because we're more likely to be correct. But let's just see what happens with the
sure. Just to make it, this is not real money.
Make it interesting. Yeah, our college football locks of the week.
Right.
I think our lock of the week is that it's going to be under, and then I guess obviously the money line. But like it's also not even worth like why would I want to risk if I wanted to win $100 or like why would I want to risk $1,450 of my money to win 100? I could like it's what is that interest? Like 6% interest or something like over in a week. It's not very. I guess it's probably more like 8%, 7% interest.
No,
pretty, not bad, but if I leave it in the bank, I also don't risk losing all of it.
Right.
It's yeah. I don't see the advantage there, but. Maybe the thing would be, well, maybe I bet $5 on the money line for Colorado, and
right, because that's at least interesting. And if it did pay off, then you'd have a decent return on your.
And then it'd just be a lottery ticket, and there's no.
But at least you'd enjoy watching the game for the hope that your lottery ticket pays off.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet $100 in the hope I'd win like $750 or whatever. So like but that does seem strange.
No, that's not interesting.
But maybe what has been interesting has been maybe the Royals' recent success. Since they lost tonight, but they had won 10 out of 11 before that. They'd been 5-1 this week, including a sweep of the Houston Astros, which may affect American League playoff seeding. It actually also theoretically could cost the Astros a playoff spot. Potentially if the if things in the AL West shake out a little bit differently. But
depending on how Seattle finishes the season.
Yeah, Seattle finishes well, and if the Blue Jays finish well, they could both be ahead of Houston potentially, along with the Rangers. But it cost Houston the division lead basically, and it cost them maybe a good shot at winning the division. Now they're 2.5 behind with only a handful to play. So, but yeah, the Royals were, is this something we can look forward to next year, or is it one of the classic Royals do well in September, then squander all of that momentum and suck next year anyway.
It seems to be the latter. I don't know what the deal is. They haven't had a lot of call ups late this season, uh, because they had all the call ups across the entire season. But
And I guess roster rules now are a little different. They can't call up everybody like they used to.
yeah, they can't go to the full 40 man. They only get what, 2 additional spots, I think is what it is. I don't know, they go to a 28-man roster. Wasn't that what we found out?
Yeah, 26. Yeah, it's kind of it's not much of anything.
From 26 to 28. Yeah. So
it gives playoff contenders maybe 2 more relievers usually, I think, is what now people are probably using it for.
They did play Veneziano, which is how they pronounced it on air today, just in case you wanted to know.
Nice.
We talked about that
That was my guess. That was my guess.
Yes, Veneziano. So he did appear in a game now, and he was all right. They use him in relief, though. I'm not sure why. He's been a starter as far as I know. In the minor leagues, I'm not. And the Royals have not enough starting pitching, but they didn't use him as a starter. They used him as a reliever. I don't know why they wouldn't just have him continue to start and see how he does in an extended appearance rather than like a 1 inning shot where he didn't do that well. So I don't know. They don't make a lot of sense just in general, but they had a nice little stretch there. 10 out of 11. I think they're the hottest team in the American League. They may still be actually, but not bad. It's at least a little making the end of the season a little more enjoyable than the rest of the season has been, because it's been a long, rough year.
Yeah. There have been a few bright spots, I guess you say. Bobby Witt Jr. is continuing his improvement, becoming one of the game's best young players. Cole Reagan's on the pitching side. It's been a revelation since he was traded to the Royals from the Rangers.
Right.
Seems like the Royals have fixed maybe something. He was once a highly touted prospect, but kind of fallen on hard times, and he's been really good.
He was kind of stuck in the bullpen because of the Rangers had gone out and purchased a lot of very expensive starters, and stuck
most
Reagan's in the bullpen.
For him,
He had a couple of bad appearances, and that just effectively ended his season for the Rangers. Although some of their expensive rentals ended up going down, maybe they would have liked to have kept him around to fill in for injuries. But
Reagan's for the Royals has he's got a 3.31 ERA on the season, but for the Royals he's a 2.34 ERA, and that includes kind of a bad game he had against the Astros where he allowed 5 runs, but they still won that game because the Royals scored a lot of runs that game. The Royals. So he has Reagan's has started 11 games, 7 quality starts. So that's at least 6 innings, 3 or fewer earned runs allowed. Is an 8-inning 4-run 4 runs allowed? Is that a quality start?
I think it is not actually, because it's a weird.
Right?
It should be, yeah.
Because it's better than 6 and 3 because it's long. Because you want to get 8 innings out of the guy, and the ERA is still the same.
Right. I think it is not considered
a complete
because
game.
The quality start is a made up, nonsensical thing anyway.
Or a complete game 4-run would also be better, but I think that's also.
It would be he could get a victory, a complete game, but not a quality start in the same. Right. It doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make sense, but and also quality is not really an adjective that means good. It simply means high quality would be high quality start, because quality could be good or bad. It could be poor quality or high.
It needs a designation as to define.
It's just a indication that we are judging it on some sort of merit. People use it though, as how was a quality job there, but it just means rating.
Yes. but maybe realistically for the Royals, the emergence and the last month, if you're looking at stats, pull up James MacArthur's numbers for the month of September only, not the other months. Just look at what he has done since his most recent call up, I believe at the beginning of September.
Okay, so James
And
MacArthur.
this is directly why the team has done well recently, is his performance. Mike, what has he done this month?
Okay, so this month, so he had a game against. Well, he started out not so great because he
This
had
is
a
you're talking about
63 he had a
pre-September.
63 ERA in June.
Yeah. I said ignore that. Just look at
It
the month
went
of
down,
September.
and then it went down all the way to 15.43 because he had a 7.5 ERA in August, which
Yeah,
is still not very good.
not
But
very good.
he has had a remarkable September where his ERA now is 5.31, which doesn't seem that great, but he has a 0 ERA in September, only 13 innings, but still, he's only
As a
allowed three
reliever,
hits,
getting 13 innings of the course of 27 days as it is right now
13 and a half, 30,
isn't
30 innings.
bad, though, right?
Only 3 hits allowed, 0 walks allowed,
Yep.
14 strikeouts.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
But it
remarkable.
included a game where he came in with runners at first and third and nobody out, and he got 3 strikeouts to not even allow them to put the ball in play. That is the Superman sort of scenario that the Royals are sort of looking for relievers somehow.
Yeah, and I
He
can't see
actually
inherited from
delivered it, and that's after having given up 7 earned runs in a single inning in his first
Yeah.
appearance, which is
Yeah, I can't.
impressive.
Yeah,
What is his ERA? His season ERA is now
5.31. Yeah.
but he's dropped it.
His whip is 0.98, so that you don't usually see that with a 5.31 ERA.
Yeah.
That's
But
like
his
a
ERA is 58 points lower than it was
yeah.
earlier in the season. Right?
Yeah, if walks plus hits brings, but if it's below 1, that's usually like, oh, it's your ERA is like 2-ish, if
Yeah.
that. It might even be lower. And this is, if you allow less than 1 base runner an inning, you're doing pretty well. And
Yeah.
he's been really good. So he has
Yeah.
been great out of the bullpen. Reagan's has been great as a starter. Witt has played pretty well the whole season. And there, Fermin was kind of a revelation. Michael Garcia has played solidly as a third baseman, so he thinks like,
And
maybe
and leadoff hitter then too.
and lead off. Yeah, so like, there are a few bright spots. Perez is still around. So
Mhm.
he's played okay, but maybe it seems Melendez has taken a step back.
This
Yeah,
bat seems to have woken up a bit late, but as of late, but yeah, it's been a pretty rough year for Melendez.
Singer didn't have a great year, but he was kind of okay towards the end, but he got injured again. And
Yeah.
um,
Keller was okay until he got hurt, and then he was awful when he came
yeah,
back.
he's been
But he
kind of
missed months. So
yeah.
yeah, the starting pitching is definitely the biggest hole they have right now, and they don't seem to be even testing what they have to see if they have anything worth keeping around as a starter for next season. I don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a good thing. Well, the worst the Royals could do now this year is lose 108 games, which I think even 2 weeks ago, losing less than 110 was kind of unthinkable. You thought it would
It took
be
10 wins in 11 games to
yeah. You
get to
thought
get to
I know.
that.
Yeah. Now they're just like very bad. They were historically bad. Now they're just very bad. And they're 6 games over the A's now. Even the A's have kind of crept back a little better, though they've faded a little bit lately. The Royals are threatening. Actually, they're only 3 games behind the Rockies now, so maybe they're, but they're comfortably in the top the top 3 draft slots. So they still have the best shot at getting number 1 draft pick. So you hope. I don't know who the number 1 pick is going to be, but you hope if they get that number 1 pick, well, maybe 2-3 years they might be okay, but who knows?
Yeah.
No, you don't think so, but maybe by the time they get
spoiler alert, Mike, they're gonna get the 3rd pick. That's just what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
I don't even know why they're doing this. They're not gonna win the lottery. I don't.
And the top 2 are going to be like can't miss prospects, generational.
Yeah, and the 3rd guy
power.
they're gonna pick like a high school kid who's lived inside of a bubble his entire life, but he looks really good at MLB 2K17 or something, and not
Yeah,
even a current baseball like video game.
yeah, it'll
Yeah,
be
that's what they're gonna end up drafting.
you know, it'll be Bryce Harper type of guy at number one, and then like
Wow.
Manny Machado number two, and then it's like somebody else picks number five, six, seven. They hit it out of the park, but the Royals at number three will miss it. I don't want to talk too much. Even though the Royals are doing well, I don't know if I want to talk too much more about the Royals.
It's still a wasted year.
Should we just look forward to maybe we'll have a season? I guess we can have a season dissection after next week's during next week's episode because the season should be over. I think the Royals have 5 more games left, 4 more games left.
Yeah.
They are 54
The season
ends.
the regular season ends on the week after the end of the weekend. Yeah, so we'll have hopefully a season wrap up and playoff preview next week probably.
Yeah, playoff preview. Yeah, and we'll know who the playoff teams are.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's starting to shape up, but there's still some wiggle room, particularly in the American League. And I guess is some in the National League too, with that last wild card spot. It seems like the Marlins and the Cubs and the Reds are all kind of fighting. Along with Diamondbacks, I guess, are kind of all fighting for the last 2 spots. But in the
there's about 5 teams that are still in there.
It's similar in the AL, but it's not. I guess there's probably one.
It's mostly just the West. We don't know anything out of the West. There's no one has officially claimed a spot from the West yet.
But. Yeah, we don't know the West. Yeah, and like the Blue Jays, unless they lose all their games, are going to be in it.
I think Seattle would have to win all of their games, and Toronto would have to lose almost all their games just for it to be tied. So
yes, and I'm sure that some of those teams play each other too, maybe at the end.
I think Houston and Seattle are playing each other right now.
So you want to move on to the NFL? Okay. Well, I think that's enough talk about the Royals, even though they're doing better. But I think we should move on to our Week 4 NFL preview, including our locks of the week or our shoe-ins of the week. I don't know. Can't misses of the week. Maybe we can develop those terms proprietarily as we come in. So for our legions of viewers, we'll really take Vegas down with these hot picks, and you don't even have to pay any money for these picks. You don't have to call any 1-900 number that charges by the minute and speaks very.
When our odds get into like we're right on these like 90% of the time, then it goes behind a paywall for sure. Don't you think?
Paywall. Yeah, we'll have so many paywalls and levels. We'll have a plus, and then a gold, and then a platinum, diamond.
Yeah.
I don't know what else. What's higher than vanadium or some sort of rare only space element.
Yeah, the UU series of the elemental periodic table.
Technetium. Is it technetium or technetium? Which do you say?
I think technetium. I think is one. Yeah.
Okay. The one that the element number 43, I believe, on the periodic table that was not discovered on Earth, but was only made in a lab,
theorized and then created. Yes.
Yeah. Number 43.
There have been a lot. There are a lot of the really high numbered atomic atoms that are
I don't like
have
those.
existed.
They only last for like a billionth of a second. Right. Like what is that? That's lame. Oh, let's just add another electron and make it 124.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
It has to be add a proton though, or wouldn't have the mass to.
Yeah, we got to make another proton and just I guess you bombard it with a hydrogen atom, hope it sticks or whatever.
Basically, that's what, or trying to hit 2 medium-sized atoms together and making the nuclei fuse briefly before they violently break apart and possibly rip a hole in space-time. Like,
destroy the universe. Yeah.
That's just a possibility. It's unlikely though, Mike.
Yeah. Did you see Oppenheimer?
I did. Yeah, it was good.
I thought it was really, really good. It was.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
I thought it was amazing. I think it might win the best picture. I think it was
Yeah.
outstanding. I thought it wasn't. I thought it'd be. I don't know. I didn't know a whole lot about Oppenheimer's life.
Yeah.
Coming in, I was not. I did not read his biography that it was based on. And
Yeah.
I had kind of read a few things about him before, but it was really good. I thought it was. Especially since not a whole lot happened really, but it was really interesting. Like
Yeah.
the bomb, of course, going off was a cool thing, and you kind of knew what happened, but like the behind the scenes stuff, I thought the the Senate, the kind of intrigue with the Senate subcommittee
Yeah.
um, and the Commerce Secretary that ran afoul of Oppenheimer, and that
Right.
was all. That was like the sort of long, simmering revenge that he had plotted that did not come to not quite come to fruition and led to his own demise. I thought, yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was it was a really good movie. I'd watch it again. Um,
Did you
it
see it
was
in the
long.
theater then? Or did you see
I
it?
saw it in the theater. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I saw it in the theater with my chemistry professor
Oh
friend.
yeah.
Uh, one of my chemistry. I have two chemistry professor friends here in Freshman
Yes.
Row. This was with Dr. Gerald Simon, the physical. He's a physical chemist. He does it with lasers. Um, but anyway,
Nice. Yeah.
I guess they're physicists rather than chemists, but it's still, yeah, they kind of intersects. It's got atoms. More, it's different from what you do as a biochemist.
Right. Yeah, I'm more concerned with protein function, and that's my academic pursuit anyway was on that side rather than what this movie was about anyway. But
Yeah, but it was
it, it
interesting.
did it did draw me to the theater. It was the first movie I'd seen in the theater since before the pandemic, even.
Oh,
So
really? Okay.
yeah, I hadn't seen. I think the most recent Star Wars movie was the last movie I saw in the theater
Oh, wow. Okay.
before the
I
pandemic. Yeah.
I
So
saw. I was disappointed with that Star Wars movie, but I thought
yeah.
I thought the Last Jedi was good, and it was kind of going in a direction. But then decided those certain fanboys didn't like it. Where let's completely reverse and erase that, and we'll just say, oh, it's because they're from famous families. It's all about bloodlines rather than about some sort of democratic use of the Force or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd seen a few. I'd seen some with my daughter
Yeah.
Marie. I'd seen the kids movies, and I'd seen some other ones. I actually saw a movie earlier tonight. I went to see A Haunting in Venice, the most recent of the Kenneth Branagh, Hercule Poirot movies, with Tina Fey in this one. It was pretty good. It was
Nice.
good. I recommend it. So if you get a chance to go see it, go see it.
Nice.
But anyway, another thing that you should this also should be in theaters is our wonderful NFL picks of the week in our next week's preview. So to kind of fill in more recent viewers, we make 3 picks on air each week that we think are we are most confident in. These are our so-called locks or shoe-ins or can't misses of the week, and then as well off the air we make bets on every game we see. 3 times we make a so in weeks like this there are 16 games being played because all 32 teams are in action. We
Mhm.
make picks on the spread, the point spread, the potential how many points a team will win or lose by. We make picks on the over under, which is the total number of points scored. Will it be over or under this total number? And then also on the so-called money line, meaning we make a bet on simply which team we think will win the game. It doesn't really matter the score. And if you pick an underdog, you will receive more money than if you pick a favorite. And so far, we've done. Dr. Scaff has done very well total, and he's made quite a bit of money. So he should perhaps consider becoming a professional gambler, giving up his scientific pursuits, and stop trying to heal the world and help people live healthier with his marvelous enzyme rich protein drinks that I also will um, vouch for. But you should leave all that behind and just become a green visored denizen of the Vegas
The
sports books.
smoky The
Yeah, have a
smokiest casino
cigar.
sports book I can find.
Yes. Something something hopefully where people will be referred to as lady friends. You need a sports book as smoky as a 1960s or 70s bowling alley with
There we
similar
go.
clientele. I think would
Yeah.
be the best. Maybe the waitresses would also be kind of referred to as lady friends um, of the uh, of the frequenters of said sports book. But
Right.
so what without any further ado, maybe we should get to our bets. We'll let since Dr. Scaff is leading, he is 6-3, so he's plus $300. I am minus $100 so far on the year. Um,
In
on
coming
these
off my
on air bets,
first ever 3-0 week too.
we on these on air bets we are not taking into account the extra little juice money that is placed that ensures the sportsbooks basically make money whether they win or lose on these bets. Usually it's about 10%.
But
You
we
have
do take that into account for the mega bet, for the full betting scheme that we're working up. Yes.
because we really need to know whether we should quit our jobs and become Vegas, sportsbook lounge.
Yeah.
You know, uh, sitters. I don't know what I was trying to think of something, but
Denizens. You already used denizen.
lounge lizard. I guess is that
Yeah.
a term?
I think that's
Yeah,
the term. Yeah.
lounge lizard. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how about your first pick, Dr. Scaff?
First pick is maybe questionable, but I like how Miami's been playing recently. They've got a game this week at home against Buffalo. Miami's actually the underdog in this game, but I'm taking Miami plus 2.5 versus Buffalo. I don't think Buffalo's quite playing as well as they may actually be, but I don't think they're quite at Miami's level right now.
It's at Buffalo. The game's at Buffalo.
Oh, it is at Buffalo.
Miami at Buffalo. At this time of year, it doesn't really matter too much because it's not going to be sub-zero type of game. This is probably the best time
It
of the
is
year.
at Buffalo. I wrote that down.
It's at Buffalo. Yeah. So that's why I think at Miami, but Buffalo would probably be a slight underdog. But
Yeah, it's right at just at the 3 point.
okay. Yeah.
So
So
it's
this is
plus 2.5. Miami plus 2.5.
yeah. You could say even with Skylar Thompson as quarterback last year in the playoffs, Miami gave Buffalo a good run for their money, and now with a healthy Tua Tagovailoa, I think that could be. Yeah, but it also could. You also might think, well, maybe this is where Buffalo's a proven kind of contender year in year out at this point. Maybe Miami ends up being sort of like Dallas, and they maybe we take a little air out of the sails of Miami. But I don't really have a feeling one way or the other. So I could see Miami with 3 points. You could say, well, even if they could also just barely lose and
1 or 2 points they'd still have to give there.
Right. So, yeah. So maybe if you think they're relatively evenly matched at home, you have Miami with the points is still I think a decent bet. Again, the idea is if Tua stays healthy, that's the thing. As long as Tua stays healthy, I think Miami is a good shot at beating just about anybody in the league, especially the way they're playing right now. My first bet is a game that involves maybe not quite as high quality of opponents. I think one of the marquee matchups this weekend is going to be the Buffalo Miami game. Together, those teams are 5-1. My first bet is the Rams at Indianapolis. The Saints. I mean, the Colts did come away with a big victory in Baltimore. The Rams came off a kind of close loss, not greatly played, not a well played loss necessarily in Cincinnati, which isn't very far from Indianapolis. So I don't know if the Rams are staying there or if they're going back. It's almost like, well, Cincinnati and Indianapolis are only 3-hour drive less than that apart. So you might as well stay out there rather than go back to Los Angeles. But and I don't know if Richardson is going to be back or whether it's going to be Minshew. In a way, it seems like maybe Minshew is actually the better play for short-term
Hmm.
returns for the Colts. But um, he's still in concussion protocol right now, so maybe it was a severe concussion. I don't know. Maybe a Tagovailoa-esque one. I'm not sure. It didn't look as bad as some of the ones that Tua has received. So I don't even know if they could tell which play it was. I
Yeah.
guess they could. They took him out of the game against the
Yeah.
Texans 2 weeks ago. So, but still, I like the Rams are 1.5 point underdogs. I think the Colts aren't great. I don't think they beat the Texans. They end up beating the Ravens, but I'm not sure they can win 3 in a row, even if it's at home. They lost their other home game to uh, Jacksonville to start out the season, and if Richardson plays, they might actually be a little worse. And I would say probably most concussions don't keep people out 2 weeks. They usually it's just a 1 week kind of thing. But who knows? But I like the Rams. I like the Rams last week to keep it close against Cincinnati. They ended up that game was it a push? Did it turn out to be a push? They
Yeah.
lost by 3.
Yeah. I think that was the one that ended up their
I
late
thought
touchdown got it to the push. Yes, that's
I
correct.
thought the Rams might win that one outright, but
Yeah.
going and
Me,
had maybe
we that was one we agreed on that we weren't
had that early touchdown that was in bounds, not been called out of bounds. They
Yeah.
possibly would have won that game because that would have been 4 more points,
Yeah.
and maybe it would have changed the whole complexion of the game. But I still like the Rams plus 1.5 against Indianapolis in Indianapolis. So I think Stafford and Puka Nakua and those and Van Jefferson and those guys will put up more points than they did against Cincinnati and be able to win outright. I think not just lose by 1 point, but I think they will probably win. I guess if you're going to bet the Rams plus 1.5, you might as well also bet them to win the game. So that's my first bet. How about your second pick, Dr. Scaff?
My second pick, I'm going to the early Sunday game, the international first of the NFL's international series is Falcons at Jaguars in Wembley Stadium in London. I don't really have a good feeling for who's going to win the game, but the over under is relatively low, and I think these international games tend to be kind of shootouts, whether it's intentional or not, or if they're just looking to sort of maybe attract more audience from the international site that they're playing these games in. Over under 43 in this game, and I'm expecting it to go
Yeah,
over.
that's pretty low. I guess we think all the Jaguars haven't scored very many points this year, and the
Yeah.
Falcons don't really have a high-powered team either. But 43 is pretty low, and I would say, that's possible. I think that's very possible. I think Jackson. It's also maybe Jacksonville's second home, maybe future home. They're having trouble with their stadium right now, and possibly will leave. And they have played by far more games in London than any other team, and they're owned by a British guy, if I remember correctly.
Well,
So they could move to Wembley. They're playing 2 weeks in a row in England. In London. They're playing first at Wembley this week, and then next week they're going to play at Tottenham Hotspur's maybe 2 years old new stadium as well. So it's I think maybe this is possibly a preview of the London Jaguars. England is
yes,
famous for its Jaguar automobiles. Maybe it will also have a Jaguar, as they say, football
right.
team at some point. If any team moves to across the pond, I think it's the Jaguars because
Yeah,
Jacksonville is not a very big metro area. Also, it's a very college football centric area, and pro football is not quite as important in that
yeah,
particular region. But um, anyway, I would like to see expansion. Maybe a whole division, I think, would work well in Europe. That'd be easier. And then maybe another international division in other parts of North America, because also now the NFL is looking at games to be played internationally now, maybe next year even in Brazil. Have you heard this?
No, I hadn't heard
And,
that.
and some other, and Spain, Brazil and Spain, I think are the next two countries, and France, I think, are the countries where they're looking to play international games now. So, maybe there could be. And a team in Brazil, the time zones are a little. It would be, it's kind of a mid-Atlantic kind of time zone, so it's probably kind of almost halfway, or closer to halfway between New York and London, which are about 5 hours apart, usually 6 hours sometimes.
Yeah.
Brazil, a team in Sao Paulo or a team in Rio, if that could happen. I don't know. That seems like it's pretty far fetched at this point, but who knows?
Yeah.
It would be like having a team in Bermuda, I suppose, in terms of the time zones. But I am my second bet is on a much more domestic matchup. Probably perhaps the most domestic, thinking of beer and things like that. This is Detroit at Green Bay. It's on Thursday. It's on a Thursday night. It's a Thursday night game, those are notoriously wacky because teams don't have very much time to prepare. Teams, sometimes the defenses aren't ready. Sometimes the offenses look terrible. But it's Detroit at Green Bay. And Detroit is favored on the road against the Packers by 1.5 points. I think Detroit's a pretty decent team. They beat the Chiefs, although you could say, well, that was a fluke. But I still don't think Green Bay is very good. They ended up beating New Orleans, but that was because Derek Carr ended up getting hurt, and they only scored points at the very, very end. Had Carr been on the team, he got hurt like in the beginning of the third quarter, I think. So like they played almost the second. I guess Jameis Winston is a big step back from Derek Carr, at least in his opening game. It seems like Winston will also play next week. It seems like maybe Carr separated his shoulder or something like that. But yeah, I like Detroit. I still don't know if Jordan Love's the answer, and I still don't really like the way the Packers are built and set up. I don't think they're really a modern team offensively, and they rely on the run too much and on defense too much. Even though I would say right now their running game isn't as good as it has been in the past, and their defense might not be as good as it has been in the past, and also their quarterback's not quite as good as it was in recent years to do. So I think if this is Detroit also beat. You might remember they beat Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in Lambeau at the end of the season last year. So you think they could probably do it again. They aren't afraid of the Lambeau mystique, although maybe you could say the Packers will be out for revenge. But I still like Detroit minus 1.5. I think they're going to win, so might as well take 1.5 as well. So that's my second bet.
I think we're both going sort of uncharacteristically into the same game for our third picks. Is that correct?
Yeah, we ended up going to the same game last week, and we were both right on our picks. We picked the Chargers Vikings. You took the over. I took the over under. You took the spread. We're doing the same this week. You're taking the spread. I'm taking the over under. And what game are we picking?
This is the Kansas City at New York Jets game and that is that the Sunday night game?
It was the Sunday night game. It was thought, well, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. The Jets are, trying to compete for a Super Bowl along with the Chiefs, and it's going to be a big game. But now it's Zach Wilson and the floundering New York Jets.
Struggling to score points, not looking very good on offense. Defense looks all pretty good, but that was against not so great offenses.
Yeah, they only allowed 15 points to the Patriots, although the Patriots seemed like they dominated most of that game. And they did beat the Bills in week 1 at MetLife Stadium. I almost said the Meadowlands, which is shows my age. I think it's been MetLife the last 15 years almost, probably, but it's in that basic area. It's still in the Meadowlands, I believe.
East Rutherford, New Jersey.
East Rutherford, New Jersey. The New Jersey Jets, the New Jersey Giants.
Yes.
And so the Chiefs are favored by 9.5 points. Who do you like in that game?
I'm taking the Chiefs minus 9.5. If they handled the Bears, I don't know if the Jets are really all that different than the Bears at this
Yeah,
point.
I don't know. You think maybe they have a better
I'm not
defense,
sure.
but
Yeah.
you might say they have a less intimidating quarterback because, well, Wilson is probably just as bad a passer as Justin Fields, but not the threat as a runner Justin Fields is. So, maybe
Hmm.
the backfield with Brees Hall and Dalvin Cook is better, but the
Hmm.
receiving core maybe about equal. Maybe Garrett Wilson's a little better than um, DJ Moore and Deontay Johnson and stuff, but
Hmm.
not Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, the other Pittsburgh Steeler who was traded,
Yeah.
Chase Claypool and Darnell Mooney. Yeah, there's in Cole Kmet is decent. I think you think the maybe the weapons are almost equal. Maybe the receivers and the running backs are a little bit higher on the Jets, but they still don't score any points, so it doesn't really matter what. Nicole Hardman might want his revenge, but it seems like he's barely even seen the field in
Yeah.
their first 3 games. Do you know if what Hardman, the former Chief, has done in
Hmm.
New
Not
York?
much from what I've read, at
I,
least anyway. But
yeah, I think he's been he feels like maybe he's been sold a bill of goods because now he thought he was going to play for with Aaron Rodgers
yeah.
and be maybe a starter or at least a high level contributor uh, on the part of the Jets, but he has basically been anonymous. Let's see. In terms of receiving, Nicole Hardman has played 3 games. He has 1 reception on 1 target for 6 yards.
Wow,
So
that's not a whole lot of participation.
no, so not so great for the former second round draft pick by the Chiefs. So he signed a pretty big contract too, and yeah, he's basically been invisible. So
Yeah.
you like the Chiefs to win uh, by by 10 plus. I There's the over under, which I saw was we in both of us. I think you were almost ready to take this bet as much as I was.
Yep.
Was that the over under was only 42.5, which is very very low for a Chiefs game.
Hmm.
And
Well,
uh,
considering the Chiefs scored 41 points themselves in the previous week,
yeah, and that was with Mahomes not playing um,
quarter and a half.
2 bits of the game. Yeah, he
Yeah.
probably maybe played 60% of that game, and it seems like also the Chiefs may have points taken off the board. They could have been 45 pretty easily, and that
Yeah.
would have been um, over by themselves. And I think you might think, well, the Jets' defense is a little better, but I don't really know the whole game of Mahomes, and I think maybe the Jets score 14. That means that the Chiefs only have to score 29 to make it over. So I think this is another 30 plus point game for the Chiefs. I think this is another game where they're trying to fine tune their offense before the meat of the schedule, and the the Chiefs have a fairly easy go of it for a little while. Uh, they play at the Jets. Maybe they're at Minnesota. Minnesota has been struggling. Home against the
Mhm.
Broncos. Home against the Chargers. At the Broncos, and then Week 9 is against the Dolphins, and that seems to be a big matchup. Then it's the Eagles the next week. So like those are the Week 9 and 10 are really where the
Yeah.
schedule I think really really gets hard
And the Miami
because
game's on the road, a very long distance game in
in
Frankfurt.
Frankfurt,
Yes.
Deutschland, yes, in Germany, and the Chiefs haven't played overseas for a few years now. I remember when they played the Lions in London several years ago. They played overseas since.
Hmm. They did not play in Germany? No, there was a Germany game last year, but it wasn't the Chiefs.
That was Tampa
Yeah.
and somebody if you remember watching that game during halftime or during the 2 minute one of the timeouts where the entire German stadium apparently knew all of the words to John Denver's "Country Roads Take Me Home." Do you remember that? Where they all sang it, which I was incredibly surprising. How did they know that song? I think of that
Yeah.
as being, I guess it's a song they sing at, West Virginia football games, and
Yeah.
Baltimore Orioles also have that as their seventh inning stretch song. But yeah, I guess it's a thing in German stadiums. I don't really know, but they all knew "Country Roads Take Me Home" by John Denver, and since the German fans are very enthusiastic, I think there'll be big Chiefs fans there because the Chiefs are one of the teams that is specially marketed in Germany. So and Austria and Switzerland, they're in the entire German-speaking uh, European world, and Mexico. Those are their markets, I think, outside
Hmm.
of the United States that they've been they're able to like directly market to fans. Anyway, but that's a long time we have. They're playing the Jets right now. We thought they might be a good team, but the Jets are actually in shambles because they don't have um, Aaron Rodgers, and the quarterback they brought in to replace
Hmm.
as their backup, as their second quarterback, doesn't seem like he's going to provide a whole lot of help. And that's Trevor Simeon. Do you think Simeon? Well, he's not going to play this week, but do you think Simeon has a chance to replace Wilson as the season goes on? And if he does replace Wilson, are they going to be any better?
No. Just I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I did
Yeah.
think where you were going with that was I thought you were going to say that they're struggling because they don't have Aaron Rodgers and they do have Nathaniel Hackett. That's I thought for
Well, that's
sure
true.
was
So
what you were going to
I
say.
wanted to go 1 week without making fun of Nathaniel Hackett, but it came up again. He is, I think, out of his depth, and it seems like, given I think this idea that the Jets were looking for a quarterback, and according to news reports that I saw, both Matt Ryan and also Carson Wentz reached out, or their people reached out to the Jets, and you think, well, that might be a good pickup. One of the, Matt Ryan uh, was a good starter, a few years ago. He won the MVP a few years ago. He
Yep.
still maybe has a little bit of juice left. He was maybe unfairly demoted in Indianapolis during their
Hmm.
awful season last year. And then Carson Wentz is also fairly young still, and he's a former very high round pick. He's played at a very high level at the game. These last couple of years, not so great, but he's still kind of and at least a mediocre starter, maybe, and that's probably as good as you have in Wilson. I think is better than what you
Yeah.
would get with Simeon.
Well,
But
he led a team to the playoffs, and in theory, it could be the same scenario because there's like a very slim chance that Rodgers comes back for the playoffs. In
in
theory,
theory, is there?
they've that's what Rodgers has said, but
Maybe he has a
the
shaman that
the
will
likelihood is not very good. I don't
heal
know.
his.
I happened to see like a little clip of him talking on what is the Pat McAfee show or something.
Yeah, he's always
But
in the
he,
Pat McAfee show.
but he was
He's
like
got.
literally like laying, and you could see like a pillow behind him. He was like laying in bed, like doing a TV show. I was like, that's pretty hilarious.
Well, he probably thinks he can do better than Zach Wilson even on one leg.
No.
And even Joe Namath was out there, saying the Wilson experiment should be over. We should get somebody else, but
Yeah.
they don't really have anybody else. So
Right. Well, now they have Trevor Simeon, so it's all fixed.
Trevor Simeon, maybe, but not for a week or two, probably, because he's got to get acclimated at least a little bit. You probably won't throw him in this week, I would guess.
Well,
Right?
maybe the question is, do you think he'll show up?
Well, there
A
have
few
been
of the
problems. Matt
other
Corral
cities have that.
had an issue in New England and hasn't shown. So we have the possible return of Bailey Zappi. Especially, we didn't talk about this. Was when Mac Jones had an issue last week with Sauce Gardner of the Jets. Supposedly, he punched or grabbed Sauce Gardner in the groin area, and maybe Mac might be suspended. And if so, does that mean that Bailey Zappi comes in and runs the show? Mac Jones hasn't been too bad this year in terms of the stats. His stats are comparable to Jalen Hurts' stats this year. We saw statistics on that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, but anyway, back to the Jets. Yeah, I think the Chiefs win comfortably. I hope they win comfortably. It was a pleasant surprise that Bears game, because usually the Chiefs games, even if they're supposed to win big, they don't always
Mm-hmm.
win big, and there haven't been a lot of very comfortable games. The only uncomfortable moment was maybe early on when they didn't score on the first drive, and then when Mahomes got hit in the ankle. But let's hope the Chiefs avoid problems in East Rutherford Sunday night. And we also maybe hope that Chris Collinsworth does not just call out every time that Jawan Taylor lines up maybe an inch off where he is and make it the scandal of the century, which leads to every penalty being called on Taylor when it's not called on anybody else. But
they'll just rename the illegal procedure or illegal formation
legal formation,
the Juwan Taylor penalty. They'll just refer to it league wide as that. Yes.
Yeah. But he's been very good pass blocking. His rates
Yeah.
have been very like Mahomes has been really almost untouched a lot of the time. He's been a lot. Donovan Smith also got dinged up in the Chiefs game, and so did the backup Prince Tega Wanogho. So maybe the line's a little bit iffy, but I think probably by the end of this week, hopefully that'll shake out too. So, but I still we both like the Chiefs, and we like the over. You've got the Chiefs minus 9.5. I've got the over 42.5. Any other games that we want to talk about next week, or do we want to just leave our analysis until
Well, I think the big games that we need to at least mention are the Broncos, Bears, and the Vikings, Panthers, the battles of the 0-3s.
Battles of the 0-3.
But that's where, like, I think you and I will be maybe separated in our our large spreadsheet that we're doing with all of the games. Because I don't know that either of us have a real good, look at or take on what any of these teams are doing or how they're, doing anything at this point.
I don't. Yeah, right now the Broncos are favored by 3.5 in Chicago, which I might just say we'll take the Bears and the points at home. But I don't really have a great feel for that. I'll see maybe where the line settles.
Broncos just lost by 50 points, but they probably don't want that to happen again. So
yeah,
they may be going
in Chicago, and the Vikings at the Panthers. Minnesota is favored by 3.5 as well on the road. I think that Minnesota's. I would probably take Minnesota because I don't think Carolina's very good. So, but that's my lean. I guess I would take the home team with the Bears getting some points, and I would take the Vikings because I think they've just been kind of unlucky, but they still are. I think they still have a chance to make the playoffs if they, win a couple games in a row. Although next week they play the Chiefs at home, so if they win this game, maybe the Chiefs, the Chiefs blow the Jets out. Maybe this would be sort of a trap game. But without Rodgers, the idea is maybe they're going to look forward. Maybe they're looking ahead to Minnesota and not paying attention to the Jets. But yeah, there are some bad games on the slate next week.
Chargers doesn't look that great.
Steelers, Texans, Patriots, Cowboys look somewhat interesting. I think it's at Dallas. I would think it was hilarious if the Patriots won that game. It's Dallas minus 7, and I almost just want to pick against Dallas because I hate Dallas. But that would also mean picking Mac Jones. So I'm torn there.
Yep.
And it's also that maybe there's I think another interesting game is the Cardinals, fresh off their win against Dallas, are at the 49ers, and the 49ers are favored by 14. That's a really, really, really big number.
Yeah.
And that is one of those things. Well, you think, we think probably still, I would say the 49ers win, but are they going to win by 2 touchdowns? That's a lot of points in the NFL. Stuff to think about for next week.
Yeah.
Do you have any other comments or excitement to convey about Week 4 NFL action, or should we just save all of that until after the games have been played, after all the scores have been tallied, and after our bets have been counted, and we'll do that again.
Are you expecting any huge upsets like there were this week? Maybe that's the question that I would ask you.
Huge upsets. I guess the reason that they're huge upsets is because nobody's expecting them.
Yeah.
So I could see. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, the big spread games are the
big spread. I could see the 49ers lose to the Cardinals because they did lose. Like, they beat the Cowboys, and Brock Purdy's got to lose sometime, and or maybe he gets hurt, because the 49ers are historically known for their quarterback injuries, and they've been very healthy so far. And all their players are getting injured. McCaffrey gets hurt all the time.
Yeah.
Nick Bosa gets hurt all the time. Most of their play. Deebo Samuel gets hurt all the time. All their players get hurt all the time. So
Yeah.
it's right now they're really riding on a high, but yeah, I don't.
Maybe the game that I think you and I would probably both enjoy seeing the upset the most, though, Commanders over the Eagles. Are you willing to call that one now? That it's definitely going to be a Commanders victory, Mike? Or are you going to call it?
Well, last year, you might remember, the Commanders did win in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
that was the Eagles' first loss of the season on Monday night or Sunday night. I think it was Monday Night Football, and so Sunday Night Football. It was a night. It was a primetime evening game at Lincoln Financial Field, but they're favored by the Eagles. Are only favored by 8. Although the Commanders have won 2 and they're 2-1. So I don't think so, because I think last year they had better quarterback play than they did this year, because Howell was not. They had I think Wentz wasn't still the quarterback. I think it was Taylor Heineke at that point, and Heineke, I think, is a plucky kind of guy who can eke out close victories, and I'm not sure if Howell is at that point yet.
No.
So I won't. I would be happy if the Eagles lost.
Yeah.
But I'm not predicting that.
Yeah.
I would also be happy if the Titans beat the Bengals. I think that would be interesting, because I think the Bengals are very good, but they still haven't figured things out. And if the Bengals lose, maybe this means, the Bengals might start putting Burrow on the shelf, getting ready for next year, and maybe saying this season's a loss because we need to get Burrow some rest at some point, because his calf is not healing well. But I think those are my dreams, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Other than my other dream is to wrap up this episode, because we've gone on much longer than our we always go on longer, it seems like, or very often go on longer than our 1 hour as we advertise here on the Morning Trip Power Hour. This is why our hours are so powerful, because they often last 2 hours or even more, depending on what the week is. But we'll mercifully bring an end to this episode, and as always, I am Dr. Michael Werman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the Warning Track Power Hour. Please like and or subscribe to our YouTube channel or our podcast. It's available on many different podcast delivery systems, and you will be able to find this week's episode plus many, many previous episodes of equally entertaining back and forth between Dr. Andrew Scaff and me, Dr. Michael Werman. But I like to mention that we mentioned our names a couple more times, but I think we shouldn't talk. We should end all of this foolish talk and regroup, decamp until next week. And until then, we will bid you a good day.